Okay, I'd like to call to order the Planning and Zoning Commission meeting for Wednesday, April 12, 2023. And I would like to make a note here. We have a notice of option to call. This is a notice of option to recess into executive session. Pursuant to the state law, notice is given to the members of the commission and the general public that at this regular meeting, the commission may vote to go into executive session, which will not be open to the public, for legal advice and discussion with the city's attorneys for legal advice on any item in the following agenda. So we are ready for the roll call, please.
Marie Jones.
Present.
Bob Harris.
Present.
Ricardo Guthrie.
Present.
Mary Norton. Present. Marshall Camp.
Present.
Ian Sharp.
Present.
Carol Mandino.
Present.
At this time, any member of the public may address the commission on any subject that is not scheduled before the commission today. Due to open meeting laws, the commission cannot discuss or act on items presented during this portion of the agenda. So if you would like to be heard on an item that is not on the agenda today, please. I don't see anybody, so we'll move on to the approval of minutes from the last meeting, which was March 22nd. Do we have a motion on that?
This is Commissioner Mandino, and I move to approve the minutes of March 22nd, 2023, as written.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. And so, is there any discussion of that item? No, then all those in favor of approving those minutes, please say aye.
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 All those opposed? None are opposed, that passes. Can you hear me? No. No, you can't. No, okay. I can. All right, so now we're going to move on to the public hearing. This is PZ 2100126001, specific plan for the NAH healthcare project.
I believe it does take a minute to share the presentation. So. Just for one more time, if you do wish to make public comment, please fill out the speaking card and return it up here to the lady in the Westford sweater. Thank you so much. I see that the screen is sharing now, so we'll get going on this presentation. Thank you so much, Chairman and Commissioners. My name is Tiffany Antoine, the Zoning Code Manager for the City of Flagstaff. Tonight we're talking again about the NAH Health Village Phase 1 specific plan and concept zoning map amendment. At the last meeting, there was an extensive presentation that detailed the components of this case. As a follow-up, this presentation is focusing on the development agreement as well as the findings for this case. As requested, we have members in the audience tonight from Outline. We also have attendance of our staff. We also have traffic staff. I have a lot of staff that have actually left the meeting room and are attending online just to save as much space as possible. So we have folks here as requested, and I want to also call out, we have our management services, which is our finance division as well, to try to help answer any questions tonight, and I'll try to key them into my presentation. So I'll try to get through this really quickly. We do have a cap on this meeting room tonight of 8 p.m., just so everybody is aware. So we'll kick it off here. Yep. So again, this is the request before you. We're looking at adoption of a new specific plan for approximately 172.6 acres located 1120 West Purple Stage. In addition, we are looking at a concept zoning map amendment of 98.39 acres. This is going from the rural residential and estate residential zones to the highway, commercial, and public facility zones, as well as adding 3 parcels into our resource protection overlay. So at the last meeting, there were a lot of questions in regards to what was in the development agreement. We've done a lot of work between then and now to flesh out what we know is agreed upon with both parties so far to date. Of course, this is subject to a final review and approval by the city council. But to date, we have guaranteed public access to the open space areas within the development. The applicant has provided us with an easement, and staff is still in the process of reviewing that easement. The language is satisfactory. We also have a commitment for the provision of outdoor fitness loop or equipment. We have a commitment that phase 2 of this development, not this particular phase, will include a minimum of 315 dwelling units, and 10% of those units will qualify as Category 1 permanent affordable housing. And I do see our housing staff online, should anybody have any questions. There's also private shuttle service, which would include a continuation of the services already offered by NIH, as well as a new shuttle service from the new hospital and ACC to a transit stop or potentially stops between basically the operating hours of the ACC and hospital. So every day that they're open, this shuttle would operate. It is intended that this shuttle be open to employees. It would be a fare-free shuttle service, so that folks aren't paying for both the shuttle and then to transfer on to our local transit service. The NIH is also committed to pay 50% of the facility capital costs, which also include the land acquisition for a new fire station. As previously discussed, Fire Station 6 located on Lake Mary Road won't be able to fit an additional ladder company, and so the city is looking at also including a new fire station. The city has agreed to cover the cost of the ladder company staff, which is a minimum of 9 fire personnel, which comes at a cost of $1.4 million annually, plus the training expenses, as well as the necessary vehicles, which is a 1.6 one-time cost. I wanted to sort of cue in our Management Services Division Director, Rick Tatter, at this point in time, and especially if you have any questions, this would probably be a good time to enter into those. Of course, we'll be here as well. But Rick, I was going to cue you in. There you go.
Good afternoon, Planning and Zoning Commission. I'm here to just talk about how the City of Flagstaff may fund the ladder company, the operational costs that have been discussed as part of this development agreement related to the relocation and co-location conversation we're having. Our finance team has been looking at the cost and solutions and opportunities that we can get to a funding point. We just do not have a completed financial analysis available today at this point. But I do want to share my thoughts and how we may approach this over the coming years as this development agreement gets approved and moves forward. The City of Flagstaff has multiple resources to fund and consider these types of operational costs within our city organization. Fire services costs are considered part of our general fund, which is our largest operating fund for the City of Flagstaff, and it has many revenue resources available to address operational needs, such as sales taxes, state shared revenues, property taxes, licenses, permits, and user fees, to name a few. So there's many resources that we would look at when we're looking at operational costs organization-wide. One of the key components that we are looking for as we develop this plan is we are expecting to submit for a grant to fund quite a bit of this cost for the first 3 years. Once we do open that station, we feel very confident in that would be approved. It's a federal grant. We've done these before. So we believe we've got a window of time, a 3-year period that we hope we have external funding for. After that, we do have to cover the ongoing cost within our resources we have at the City of Flagstaff. Other resources and fundings could be growth in revenues over time. We do have current projections that have a certain amount of increase in growth already throughout the citywide, but we may see growth above and beyond those numbers, which we can then set aside and help fund these operational costs. So that's one area that we'll manage, we'll watch, and see where we can get that capacity. Another area we have is a capacity in our primary property tax levy. While cities are allowed to increase our primary property tax levy by 2% a year, we have not done that for the last 3 years. We kept our levy flat for these city property taxpayers. This has gained about 450,000 capacity. This could be something we dip into and consider funding this operational costs. Again, these decisions haven't been made, but this is in our toolbox as an opportunity. Another thing we can look at, start reserving some funds, setting aside one-time funds, creating a balance to help mitigate and help level out the costs over several years as we build into a full amount of resources to fund these additional fire personnel in the organization. Another alternative is to reallocate city programs. If we don't have the resources available, there could be a discussion on resource allocation within our general fund. Again, just part of our toolbox. I'm not recommending that at this time, but just want you to be aware. Something else in our toolbox. So yes, we would be concerned if we don't get the federal grants or we enter into a major economic downturn in the future, could impact our ability for this funding. So we're always cautious about that. And this could potentially delay the ability to staff that additional ladder company. So that could have an impact on when we have that second company in place, and could impact the NH project potentially as far as coverage. But I definitely want to say we have a strong financial team, a great budget team that talks about resource allocation, and we do this quite often through our budget process and conversations with our city council on how we address these concerns. And while I don't have an exact answer today, we will be working hard on a solution going forward. And based on the final development agreement and council directions, we will formulate those measures and those considerations in our future 5-year plans, 5-year plus plans. 10-year plans is what we generally have for our general fund. And we'll get to that point where we understand how we're setting aside resources or funding these operational costs. So that's just kind of a big picture, what we have in our toolbox, how we anticipate getting there. But I'll have it open for any other questions that the commission may have.
Go ahead. Okay, so based on the last meeting, we were looking at 45 million in infrastructure costs, 9.5 million for the new fire station, 2.4 million for the new fire truck and the new company, as well as 1.2 million for the new public transit route. So if I'm looking at what's up here, then Flagstaff is still on the hook for 4.75 million for the new fire station, correct? So half of that. And then
Correct. We feel that is really just a relocation of an existing service. So we really feel we're going to fund that portion. We've already started setting aside those fundings, and we've got the majority of our capital costs funding, those one-time costs. It's the operational costs of fire. We're trying to figure that out. Sorry to interrupt you.
No, that's good. So then the fire truck will be funded by NAH, correct? which is the 1.6 one-time.
No, we're looking at solutions internally to fund capital equipment. The facility cost is a share, but the capital equipment, we'll look at our one-time resources as well as potentially impact fees, development fees, to fund the expansion of our equipment.
Sorry, I thank you for correcting me. I read that wrong. I thought it was NAH was going to cover the cost of the ladder company staff. So that definitely changes it. Thank you.
No problem. You're welcome.
Anybody else? All right, thanks, Rick. We're going to move through the rest of the presentation. So next up on this list, NAH will coordinate a public participation and planning process with the community to develop a vision plan for the Legacy Campus. Legacy Campus, of course, being the existing facility. NAH will retain the right to develop the existing campus under current zoning entitlements, which is high-density residential, without additional public participation. So anything that's allowed by right there would go through the normal zoning process, which is not necessarily a public process, unless, of course, they do something that requires a conditional use permit or rezone. Also in the development agreement, NAH commits that the building will be designed to perform to the top 25th percentile, Energy Star 75 or higher, and will be required to demonstrate 5-year performance within the top 25th percentile based on an initial annual energy performance report. NAH will construct all water and sewer improvements as required in the water and sewer impact analysis. This is a feature we didn't provide costs for, but there is additional cost associated as well with this water and sewer infrastructure. NAH will construct all required stormwater infrastructure, and NAH will construct all required transportation improvements as specified in the approved transportation impact analysis, which we finally have. And next up, so what still needs to be resolved? We have 2 outstanding issues that we're working through to see resolved. One of those is that NAH has requested a credit for the facilities portion of the fire development fees for the hospital and ACC. So the impact fees cover facilities and they cover equipment, and they cover basically equipment and materials. Development fees cannot cover staffing. So of that portion of the development fee that would be attributed to the facilities, it's approximately $500,000. That would be credited towards that 50% cost of the capital facility of relocating the fire station. So that is the request right now. That is still an issue that needs to be resolved, but I wanted to make you aware of what that request is. Lastly is the timing of the construction of the Beulah Purple Sage intersection to grade to accommodate a future underpass. We talked a lot about this when the minor regional plan amendment went through in December of last year, and we've placed the maps up here so you can see what was under the original regional plan as opposed to what the regional plan shows now. So originally, Beulah was shown moving away from its current alignment. The reason for that was to be able to make grade underneath I-17. In working with the applicant, they did assure us that it could be done, that work could be completed, that work could be done. And with that in mind, staff has pushed for the new road infrastructure to be built to accommodate that future underpass. Knowing that when you're rebuilding the road, it's better to overbuild to some degree because it will be far more expensive at the later stages. NAH is basically requesting to include in the development agreement that they will construct that intersection at grade when the city is ready to develop that underpass. So currently the underpass is not funded or anticipated. It's not in the 5-year capital plan program for development. So that is the proposal, and those are the 2 points that we continue to work through with the applicant. All right, so we're going to work through the findings. I have a lot of slides. I'm going to go through them fast. If you want me to stop, back up, or cover a topic more in depth, just let me know.
Tiffany,
Yes.
can I ask questions before we go into the findings?
Absolutely.
I had two questions. Regarding the 25th percentile for Energy Star for all buildings, is that just buildings built by NAH, or is that all buildings within the specific plan that would be developed? Because I don't want to.
I believe right now this is specific to the hospital and the ECC buildings itself. We'll have another version of the development agreement, but I know that the NAH team has brought their specialists in this field to answer more in-depth questions for you, so this might be one of them.
And then, secondly, with regard to the timing of the Beulah and Purple Sage construction, if it is tabled until the city is ready, let's say it's many years down the road, maybe NAH has sold their facility, is that commitment still attached?
Yes, so the development agreement does extend to other landowners that would take over that particular property. My attorney just gave me a thumbs up, so I feel really good. All right, so we're gonna jump into the findings. Anybody else have any questions about what was in the development agreement? No more secrets? There it is. All right, so zoning map amendment findings. The first finding is about being consistent with the general plan and any specific plan. In this case, NAH is drafting and preparing their own specific plan. So we sure hope that they're in compliance with their goals and objectives. So I won't spend too much time on this. They are written for the hospital, so it absolutely conforms with these objectives. That, of course, is if the specific plan is adopted. So we're going to go chapter by chapter. Environmental planning and conservation, we have goals and policies in terms of air quality. Of course, the hospital is not really considered to be a major cause of air pollution, so not a lot of time spent on that. Carbon neutrality, these are new goals and policies to the plan, and I do want to just say is that carbon neutrality adoption of goals and policies is also happening concurrent while work staff has worked on this project for the last 2 years. That is one of the tricky things of being a current planner and working through these goals and policies as they're being adopted and changed. And yes, we knew that they were coming. Yes, we were aware of them. And yes, we've been communicating that with the applicant all along. But just for the knowledge and understanding that these are policies that have been developed in the same time frame as the NAH project has been working its way through its staff review. So NAH has expressed a desire to promote sustainable design, reduce carbon emissions through efficient design, enable long-term carbon planning, and minimize the development's environmental footprint. And like I said, they have their expert here tonight. I'll let them spend more time on it. I won't delve too much into it. We also have our sustainability staff as well, if you have questions necessary from the city. In terms of dark skies, NAH has provided a plan to address light pollution. They are willing to go above and beyond the minimum code requirements to do such. In terms of ecosystem health, NAH has worked with the local forest restoration groups to thin the project site in preparation for future development. I know this is one of those things that can be really upsetting to the community because it looks like work is happening on the site. It looks like construction is starting, but what has happened is good for the Flagstaff regardless. That forest thinning was very important. It will protect surrounding development in the future. We all know that there have been issues with wildfire in these areas in the past. In terms of wildlife, NAH is preserving approximately 10 acres of land that is just open space itself. There is a much larger wellness retreat area that will be open space, but it'll have a much more active component to it. That 10 acres does include the Foots Trail. It does follow an existing riparian corridor. There are animals that do use the riparian corridor, so that area will also be preserved in this regard. I was contacted by Coconino County that suggested that the use of reflective glass on all sports of the building also be discouraged to avoid bird strikes. That information has all been communicated to NAH. Finding space for open space, similar, we kind of talked about this. We've got the 10 acres around the Foots Trail. This is kind of a dream situation for us to have the Foots Trail. Foots Trails themselves are 10 foot wide. They fall in a 20-foot easement. When you've got 10 acres surrounding a Foots Trail, you've done good work. So in addition to that 10 acres of open space, we have that 30-acre wellness retreat that then also provides a recreational amenity to the community, as well as NAH. In terms of water resources, the property is located within the urban growth boundary. We can serve it. There is work that needs to be done. There is water storage. We went through those details and points at the last meeting, and if you need more of that information, I can provide it. In terms of efficient use of energy, again, this is going to fall into that sustainability realm. So NAH has made some provisions for the efficient use of energy on site. NAH is committing to providing 20 electric vehicle charging stations. Our building codes require these, but they're actually providing the charging stations. We only require that you put in the initial electric to support the charging stations. NAH states that renewable energy will play a critical role. Even if they're not able to start out the project with PD or other renewable energy sources, they're designing the site to be able to accommodate it in the future. I understand this hospital will be a fairly expensive project. So one of the things we've talked about is there are ways to implement more of the energy efficiency components over time. Is there a way to design the building where maybe some of those features aren't incorporated at this point in time, but they're added into the site over time, especially as additional fund resources and grants become available. The building would, so I'm gonna skip to the next community character, talking about scenic resources. Of course, we've got a fairly tall building here. We looked at the visual analysis at the last meeting. You know, the patient tower will be the most visible from I-17, Beulah Boulevard, and the surrounding immediate streets. We did provide that visual analysis from Fort Tuthill, from Mountain Dell, from Ponderosa Trails, as well as the adjacent sort of rural area to the west of the site. In terms of heritage resources, the property's already been cleared through a cultural resource report. It turns out that the features that are historic and need preserving also fall within the dedicated open space, so that's a good planning component. In terms of architectural design, NAH has developed their own architectural design standards. So Flagstaff's architectural design standards are based very much on sort of our traditional materials, traditional sizes. These don't always apply directly to a building such as this, a hospital. We also, in terms of Flagstaff, really love more rusticated materials. We like craft materials. And this has definitely been an interesting juxtaposition for the hospital, since they're really looking for clean, sharp lines. A hospital you want to walk into feeling like this is a definitely clean, interesting building. So it's been staff asking for rougher textures. It's been the architectural team asking for cleaner, smoother lines. And I think we got to a good in the middle between acceptable place. Community character, parking lot designs. You saw a little bit of this last time. NAH is requesting to modify their site planning design standards. So this is something very unique and will be very unique to this particular location. I couldn't see us ever approving this for anything other than possibly the hospital. Just simply because of where they're located and how they need to be set back from I-17 and the airport area itself. In terms of overhead utility lines, there are several crossing the site. There is a 12 kV line that will be underground. It is more along the front of the property. The 69 kV lines will remain in place. Our codes do not require that property owners underline 69 kVs. Growth and land area, infill and compact development. So the new NAH Health Village will not be located within the urban core where it currently is located. The expansion of this planning area into the city periphery does increase the cost of providing infrastructure and services to the site. These costs are substantial and require support from the city. NAH states that redevelopment at their existing location is not a viable option. And I can state that it's been something that they've been working on for, if not the entire time that I worked for the city, which was about a decade, if not longer, and trying to figure out how to make that existing location viable. There are no other reasonable options for a large development site within the urban core of Flagstaff that would meet the needs of the hospital and ACC, and not without substantial change or gentrification to an existing neighborhood. There are no, mix of land uses, the current proposal does cover a mix of land uses. That is the whole core of the activity center, and this health village is making sure that we are incorporating a mix of land uses. In terms of public services and infrastructure, the property is located within a future activity center. And the reason why it's designated as future is because it doesn't have that infrastructure to support it to be existing. So with that, a lot of infrastructure improvements are necessary. We have detailed those infrastructure improvements for you. NIH has performed their required analyses to determine what is necessary, and as well as to work through what is their responsibility in order to serve the site. And going towards employment, the existing Flagstaff Medical Center is considered a major employer within Flagstaff. While employment opportunities are not expected to greatly expand with the first stage of the health village, which is the ACC and the hospital, the core of this activity center will be occupied by a major employer. This doesn't happen that often. We don't often see employer converse within activity centers. The demand that we see most of the time for development is primarily residential in nature. And so to really see an activity center core built around a major employer is a pretty big deal. So the activity center, the NIH Health Village concept meets the definition of an activity center in its terms of intended uses. NIH looked at our regional plan, they saw an activity center, they identified that as a location, and they did what they could to meet those goals and policies in terms of incorporating the uses we would want to see within, or what our regional plan calls for in an activity center. The overall layout of the health village is intended to support multimodal transportation opportunities. This activity center would be most successful if it were accessible via public transit, ensuring the broader community access to this important site. Complete streets. So a TIA was completed. The goal of that impact analysis is to ensure that all transportation infrastructure requirements are consistent with and for the goals and policies of the regional plan, including enhancing complete street designs, design infrastructure in accordance with the appropriate place type, and promoting opportunities to increase the use of multiple modes of transportation and to mitigate transportation traffic congestion. That's a whole lot. I'd love to say we were perfect at getting all of those things in every project. Go ahead.
So at the last meeting, we had asked about the TIA if it was done with activity at Fort Tuthill, and we were told no. Does this include activity at Fort Tuthill?
The current TIA does not include the events at Fort Tuthill, and I believe NIH is prepared to address that issue. With that being said, all new transportation improvements will primarily focus on the redevelopment of the existing road network, including Beulah Boulevard, Woody Mountain Road, and Purple Sage Trail. So of those traffic mitigations that are required, that's where they will be focused. The required transportation improvements involve the reuse of these existing roadways. The redesign of existing transportation improvements is more conducive to conservation and preservation. The proposed transportation improvements will not necessarily reduce the use of fossil fuels. The hospital will be relocating out of the urban core and will increase the vehicle miles traveled within the city to access the site. Over the long run, vehicle miles traveled will need to be reassessed as internal capture develops with other land uses in the area. The property is more efficiently located for visitors traveling from outside of the city, and infrastructure is being developed to support carbon neutral alternatives. Again, this site will not be served by our local transit. And if you have more questions about that, we have folks to answer those questions at the TIA.
Just a question about the TIA. So that was included, in the documents for tonight. Has the 2027 build scenario with the mitigation recommendations on table 6 been accepted and agreed upon?
Thank you for that question. Yes, and NIH is responsible for paying for that. In the development agreement, we do have provisions where we can pursue grant funding. And as previously discussed, we are working in conjunction with NAH on a grant proposal right now for those improvements. So should they be funded by the RAISE grant, we will work together. The city most likely will take over that project. Should the RAISE grant not come through, we won't know until about June, then NAH will need to find alternative funding sources.
So that build scenario with mitigations that were recommended are.
They are included in the development agreement, yes. Let's see here, so transportation also involves our other modes of transportation besides just cars. So we've got pedestrian infrastructure, which includes both on-site and off-site improvements, and will complete gaps within the existing transportation network for both bicycles and pedestrians. Martin Inns was at our last meeting to go through what those improvements include, but it's a fairly extensive extension of our clips. We've got multimodal paths that are pulling some of those facilities off of the street into areas where people are more comfortable to use bikes and peds, and transit. So the hospital and ACC site have been designed to include bus stops internal to the site that meet the minimum standards of Mountain Line. So we have worked with Mountain Line in terms of locating those to make sure that they'll function. But in the interim, before public transit will be able to serve this location, NAH will provide a private shuttle service, as we discussed as part of the development agreement. So street classification, the regional plan does identify a hierarchy of roads. So this is just an understanding of where we get the standards for the roads that we're working with, and Beulah Boulevard and Woody Mountain Road are classified in the regional plan as minor arterial roadways, where Purple Sage is classified as a major collector. Those set the stage for how we set what the lane widths are, where the sidewalks are, how wide the roadway and the right of way will need to be.
Is it a minor collector street or a major collector street? Because in here it says minor.
And I've been corrected, it's a major collector street.
Okay.
There you go. So next up is cost of development. The regional plan does include goals and policies in terms of cost of development, which require that new development pay for a fair share and rough proportional share of public facilities. So fair and rough proportional share is the important component of it. And if you have questions about that, please feel free to ask, and we can run through that. The applicant will be responsible for their proportional share of public facility services and infrastructure. So when I talk about proportional share, everybody in the community will use the road. Beulah would be rebuilt, but there are folks that will be reusing and will benefit from the use of Beulah, even though it needs to be rebuilt for the hospital. So there is a share of those facilities that's borne by the community as well. And that's true for almost every infrastructure improvement to a degree. But with traffic and water service, we do these very specific impact analyses because that helps us determine what an applicant's proportional share is. Improvements required to be completed prior to the opening of the hospital or ACC will need to be funded in full by NH unless the city agrees to cover costs outside of the required proportional share. The city has committed to assisting NAH with grant applications that can assist. So we talked about how the road improvements and what we're expecting there. We have requirements for public building services and facilities, and this definitely plays into the fire department. And again, NAH has agreed to contribute 50% of the capital costs to relocate Station 6. In terms of neighborhood housing and urban conservation, most existing activity centers within the city of Flagstaff lack the fundamental core of employment opportunities. The proposed NAH Health Village will not only provide the core use of supporting a viable activity center, but the future surrounding developments be included within the overall Health Village will foster a diverse suburban neighborhood. Did you have a question? The central employment core being established first will allow supporting uses, including residential development, to be guaranteed, an interconnected development pattern with services and resources designed to support a healthy and viable neighborhood. And the design of the site will also foster points of bicycle and pedestrian connectivity from other neighborhoods. In terms of economic development, we did talk about the fact that NAH did an economic impact analysis. Again, the NIH is in need of a new location. The hospital and ACC are regional facilities, and NIH found mostly vacant land in what is Flagstaff, identified as future activity center to focus this particular development. So that takes us through finding number 1, and that was a whole lot. But finding number 2 and 3 are easy. So the proposed amendment must be determined not to be detrimental to the public interest, health, safety, and convenience. So all of this work, all of those things that you've seen before are how staff makes this determination. So staff has determined that the community benefit of this project to include contributions to the improvement of the overall transportation system and improvements to the existing water system will support the greater area and not just the proposed development. And of course, NIH identifies that the community benefits and public good are in relation to that the existing hospital cannot adequately serve the community's needs in the future, and that a new hospital expands capacity to meet those needs to implement best practices. Finding number 3 is that the site must be determined to be physically suitable in terms of design, location, shape, size, and operating characteristics. So that's why we've gone through all of this analysis. There is a significant investment. We've gone through what those required improvements are. It is what takes us a long time to get through the development review process, because we want to make ultimately sure that we can adequately serve the proposed development and that the development is appropriately accommodating and providing the infrastructure necessary to support their site. So with all of the conditions that staff has provided to you, where the development agreement is today, staff believes that finding number 3 can be met. And that is pretty much the end of the story for this point in time. And if you'd like me to go back through the conditions of approval, I can do that, but I'll save that for later if you like. And I'd love to hand the mic over to NIH.
Just kudos to you for reading this one.
Well, first and foremost, thank you, Tiffany, and the city team, and everyone who has spent a tremendous amount of time working on this. And thank you, commissioners, for listening to our presentation. I'm Josh Tingle, I'm the Chief Executive Officer for Northern Arizona Healthcare at this current time, and pleasure to start talking through our presentation. We tried to structure this presentation a little bit different than last time to answer some of the questions that many of you had, and had a really productive dialogue. So it's on. It just takes a bit. So for the NIH Health and Wellness Village, what we're talking about today is the proposed campus will be developed in 2 phases. And so what we're really talking about here today is the center portion, which is the hospital and ambulatory care center, which is phase 1 of our proposal. The second phase will come at a later date, but when we talk today, we're really concentrating on that hospital and ambulatory care center, structured parking, and wellness retreat. As we talked about last time, we believe that this facility really helps us continue to meet the social determinants of health for our region and our community. As we talked about last time, the social determinants of health account for about 80% of the outcomes and medical factors, and we believe that this campus will hit on each one of those 5 factors for social determinants of health. Our goals for the proposed facility are 1, to build a state-of-the-art medical facility where we can have advanced technology meeting the growing needs of patients in Northern Arizona. And I think you'll hear from a lot of comment tonight about the need for a more modern infrastructure from the over 3,000 colleagues that I'm here to help represent this evening. We'll continue to create an environment that improves recruitment and retention for all of our healthcare professionals. We want to increase the access to specialized tertiary care. We talked at the last meeting about us being the only level 1 trauma center north of Phoenix, and over 700,000 individuals counting on NIH for that level of care. And then having any barriers broken down that would limit any operational excellence in Flagstaff. So I'll throw away. So who are we? I think this is important. I presume every single person that is here to speak on behalf of Northern Arizona, myself included, we all got into healthcare for a very particular reason, which is improving health and healing people as our organization. We want always better care, every person, every time. And our values, which were created about 5 or 6 years ago, actually came from our staff. And we'll talk about how those tie to this overall project moving forward. We believe this development will continue to help us as our community grows and ensure the future where health and wellness is available to each and every individual. As an organization, we take care of about 25% of all our patients who are financially disadvantaged. We talked last time, we are the sole community provider in Northern Arizona. So we are the backstop for many of our patients in our outlying sister facilities, and you'll hear from some of those here tonight. Apache and Navajo counties are two of the most impoverished counties in the country, and disproportionately historically underserved as communities. As we talked about last time, about a third of our patients at any given time at Flagstaff Medical Center are enrolled in Native tribes. And in fiscal year 21 alone, we provided over $125 million in care who would not have been able to afford those services. We wanted to really depict, when we talk about this facility is built in the city of Flagstaff, hence why we are here. But to give you an idea of the size and breadth of area that we cover as an organization, it really is providing coverage to much, much greater populations than just the city of Flagstaff. As we've talked about before, about 60% of our patients that come to Flagstaff Medical Center come from outlying areas. And I could be mistaken, but that region that you were talking about right there is larger than some states in the United States. So 50,000 square miles and home to approximately 1 million people. We do provide secondary and tertiary care to all of those areas located there. As I mentioned, we are the only level 1 trauma center here in Northern Arizona, should you need that type of service. And with that, I'll hand over to Steve, who will give us the rest of that.
Thanks, Josh. As a reminder for everyone, I'm Steve Ice, Vice President of Real Estate Development and Construction for Northern Arizona Healthcare. Thank you for having us tonight. As Josh mentioned, we took a little bit of a different approach with our presentation tonight. Appreciated all of the great questions and comments and feedback that we got from not only the commission, but the community at our last meeting, and wanted to just take a very targeted approach and making sure that we gave that approach to the responses to make sure that all of your questions and needs were met. So this picture is an aerial view of the Flagstaff Medical Center campus back in 1987. And the reason I put this slide together specifically was to talk about how healthcare has and always will be changing and evolving. As someone who spent their entire career developing nonprofit healthcare, I've always been taught that you should always be looking 40 or 50 years into the future. And generally, every 10 or 20 years, something major is going to have to happen to an acute healthcare system in order to meet the needs of not only technology, but the community. And I think the timeline that's on the slide lines that out very well. So Dr. Seeker's original location in the 1930s to today has gone from the building you see on the top left to eventually Flagstaff Hospital being built in 1971, which is down bottom left. It was a community hospital providing limited services. As a reminder for what community hospital services mean, they aim to address the needs of patients with acute but manageable conditions. They provide medium to low-level clinical management of chronic degenerative diseases, and they may rely on visiting specialists from a larger acute care hospital. So the community made it from 1971 to 1987 before another large expansion needed to happen. And that was what you see being constructed in this picture on East Campus, serving more acute healthcare needs and a growing population. And then it culminated on this campus in 2005 as a level 1 trauma designation. And to remind people, that level 1 trauma center provides the highest level of trauma care to critically ill or injured patients. Seriously injured patients have an increased survival rate of 25% in comparison to those not treated at level 1 center. It's capable of providing total care for every aspect of injury, from prevention through rehabilitation, and it's required to have additional resources and staffing and a variety of specialists available to treat every aspect of the patient's injury, including round-the-clock access to those specialists. So I think as I look at that timeline, I look from 1930 to 1971, which checks that 40-year box, and I look from 1971 to 2005, which starts to check that timeline. And now I look into a facility that starts to get us out to 2027, 2028, And I think we continue to look forward for the next 50 years for Flagstaff and the region. So, planning for the future of healthcare. As Tiffany had mentioned, we've conducted multiple thorough analysis of how to best meet the region's need for the next generations. Over the past 20 years, some of them in private setting, some of them in a more public setting, NIH has developed recommendations for 5 plans of growth at the current location. Earlier plans were not viable. The 5th of those plans was done just before we started the planning exercise for the new campus. Each would led to an unacceptable disruption of care for patients who were insufficient in addressing the region's long-term needs and growth. The reality is that Flagstaff Medical Center cannot be expanded or remodeled to meet patient needs. Renovation or expansion will require closing or limiting available services or even after remodeling or new construction. Considerations for our proposal focus on the importance of planning for the next 50+ years, not just the next 5 or 10. We assessed multiple locations for a new campus, including greenfield and infill options. The proposed location and design addresses current and future needs. We also learned from the challenges of the current campus and plan the flexibility required for future needs. So kind of talk a little bit about how that manifests itself for our patients, their family members, our staff. But we're really here to talk about improving health and healing people. And our ultimate goal is to design a state-of-the-art healthcare system that's designed for efficient, effective patient care from exam and patient rooms to the operating room and recovery. We talked at the last meeting about how our current facility leads to suboptimal nurse-to-patient ratios, which we were able to design into the new facility, universal exam and treatment rooms to maximize clinical and operational excellence. Emergency department will address current limitations. Patients can be seen quickly so they can be treated and discharged or admitted for additional care. So we'll talk about this in a little more detail in a second, but this is to try and make sure that our community needs are met at our emergency department to get people through into the care that they need. So a few things that the new campus will provide. We're committed to delivering our vision of always better care for our patients and communities. The facility is designed to grow with the community and to accommodate future growth of the campus. We have thoughtfully master planned the entire campus to grow from the initial 274 beds that we plan to open with, 44 more beds that can easily be added in shell space to the phase 1 building, and then ultimately an additional 96-bed tower, including all of the infrastructure and support service needs that would be necessary to grow with that acute bedside, including growth and surgery, emergency department, imaging, pharmacy, lab, etc. Incorporating the lessons learned from COVID-19 and its impact on patient care. Most notably, being able to provide a flexible mechanical system that can handle something like COVID-19 in the future. All patient rooms will be single occupancy, providing privacy and improved infection control. As I mentioned at the last meeting, we currently have 66 double occupancy beds, and our patients have a very good chance of having a roommate in a med-surg setting. And bringing new state-of-the-art healthcare services to Flagstaff and reducing travel to Phoenix for healthcare needs, specifically for the 5,600 patients we had to defer in fiscal year 22. So to make this a little more at a human level, probably most of you in this room have either been through our emergency department or have been there with a loved one, either as a patient or a family member. Admittedly, the experience isn't what we want for the community. I always applaud our staff for doing the job they do in the conditions they do it in, but the reality is that emergency department has just passed its life. So our new emergency department is an optimal layout and design of an ED based on the needs of patients. It's a linear design, provides more direct observation of patients and access for caregivers without compromising the ability for the care team to collaborate. Allows for flexing up and down the overall department as patient volumes and acuity change throughout the day. Ideal for future growth expansion as the line can simply extend to the north. So again, planned growth as the acuity, as the inpatient beds grow. Patient segmentation, more isolated exam rooms for intoxicated patients, reducing the risk of cross-patient incidents. I think most importantly from a throughput perspective, the introduction of quick look bays close to the entrance to speed the triage and treatment of low acuity visits, meaning that if you are one of our ESI 405 patients that is there for a lower level emergency department visit, that we're able to get you in and out as quickly as possible. So we've talked a little bit about the importance of this medical center for the region. And I think we just want to correlate the importance of this medical center to the region to the rest of what makes Flagstaff so important to the entire region. We are already the regional hub of Northern Arizona in many capacities past healthcare. We have NAU, Coconino Community College. We have a regional airport. We are the I-17 and I-40 interchange, bringing in a great deal of tourism for Grand Canyon National Park, Arizona Snowball, Fort Hill County Park. And we are the only level 1 trauma center in the northern half of Arizona. And also our partners at North Country Healthcare are the largest federally qualified health center in the area. So this image that's on the right is from the Arizona Population Projection Maricopa Association of Governments, and it shows the 5.1 million population of the state of Arizona in the year 2000. If it cooperates here in a second, it will show you their projections for 2050, and population here is designated by red. So this is their population projections for the state of Arizona for the year 2050, 16 million people. And you can see the difference in red in the northern half of the state. And this is the population that we are proposing this project for. So we're preparing for the region's future healthcare needs. Projected population growth will increase demand for inpatient hospital beds, ED visits, trauma services, inpatient and outpatient surgical treatment, diagnostic imaging services, chronic disease treatment and management, cancer care and support services, and timely and integrated care. We discussed last time, it is now 2023. We are already behind the curve from an acute bed perspective. So you can imagine that between now and 2050, it's only going to get worse. So as I go through the next couple of slides, I'm going to touch on a few things that we are looking forward to bringing to the community. One of them is our new hyperbaric and wound healing center, which will open in the new ambulatory care center. Our region has more than 1 million people in communities across northern Arizona, including large, medically underserved areas. We have a disproportionately large number of chronic wounds. Medically underserved communities have higher average number of patients suffering from chronic wounds that often require amputation. In this plan, we have received federal funding to build a new wounded hyperbaric care center. The specialized care will expand treatment options and reduce the number of patients requiring amputations. There was a question brought up in an earlier meeting about are there any other PU facilities, other health village concepts that we have studied. There are many, more than this, there are many underway as a lot of healthcare systems feel this is the right thing to do for their communities as we get into the future. But we did specifically pick out two. Union Village, which is in Henderson, Nevada. Union Village is a mix of acute care hospital, ambulatory surgical center, retail, entertainment, residential apartments, and senior living. It just opened about 5 or 6 years ago. I think the best comp for us as Flagstaff residents is the Minnesota Health Villages in Maple Grove. It is anchored by Maple Grove Hospital, retail, green spaces, public trails, multifamily housing, senior living, research, and education uses. I think it's also worth noting that Maple Grove is a suburb community that is a population of about 70,000 that is anchored by a biotech company in Boston Scientific, and I feel is a very good comp for Flagstaff. But I think the most important component of a health and wellness village, and something that NAH has really been focused on, is the true power behind getting this right isn't just taking what other people have done and trying to replicate it. It's really trying to tailor fit what health and wellness is for a community. So our vision is honoring our commitment to providing always better care with a focus on holistic well-being. So that's keeping high-quality healthcare closer to home for the patients and community we're honored to serve, strengthen regional development and job creation, partnering for training and education opportunities, helping address the local housing crisis, increasing access to outdoor activities and city's vibrant parks and trails. We should get a flat next time. So the rest of our slide presentation, if no one has any immediate questions, is going to be a series of slides specifically addressing recent public comments and questions we have received on the page. Josh is going to come back and help me. We also have Noah Romy, who's our lead engineer on the project, who's here specifically to talk about sustainability.
Just a quick question. I don't remember if in the plan there was senior living. Is there a plan to integrate some senior living in?
Possibly. The area around the hospital itself hasn't been completely developed. We have a zoning opportunity to be able to put senior living in. I think that's part of our phase 2 goal, is to start to talk to development partners and start to do a true pro forma analysis, understanding that we're underway on the hospital and ACC on what those needs are. But I do think senior living is one of the targets. I also think a component of senior living at the existing campus could be another utilization for some portion of that of the existing campus. That's just my opinion. So there were concerns about this new campus and how it promotes or achieves goals and policies set forth in Flagstaff's regional plan. We went through them one by one. We have a bigger list we decided not to show, but we are achieving nearly 100 goals and policies set forth in Flagstaff's regional plans, and I'll just read the ones in bold that we highlighted. Providing high-quality emergency response and public safety services, including medical and ambulance transport service. Investing in the development of a new planned activity center which promotes the continued physical and economic viability of the region's commercial districts. Accomplishing new development on the periphery which will contribute to completing neighborhoods, including interconnecting with other neighborhoods, providing civic space and a variety of housing types, all while protecting sensitive natural features.
Thank you, Steve. The next kind of comment that we heard a lot about was emergency response for fire and EMS. A residential development near JW Powell is already driving an increased need for the emergency response services. The new location will actually lessen emergency vehicle traffic through downtown, which if you have to go down there when there's a lot of snow, it gets a little bit tight and hard even for smaller vehicles to get through. And the residential development along I-17 will require us to expand Guardian Medical Transport, which we own and operate, and our emergency response will be similar. As you heard earlier, we are committing to covering half of the capital costs to relocate and enhance the Flagstaff Fire Department Station 6 on Lake Erie Road to a new location, which will likely be on this campus. The next one was ease of access for Flagstaff in northern Arizona. As we mentioned before, about 60% of the patients that we service at Flagstaff Medical Center come from outside the city of Flagstaff and are located within the region. Downtown traffic, as it stands today, does make it difficult for many of our patients to get to FMC. Most of FMC's employees will have a more convenient commute from their existing addresses, and the maturity of the downtown development will make it really difficult to add capacity to the traffic network if we were to stay in the current location. Flagstaff residents will continue to have access to hospital, providing tertiary and level 1 trauma care, and close to home versus traveling to Phoenix. And what we did on the right-hand side, actually, I'm sure Chris Leininger did this, our expert, really took the opportunity to look from different neighborhoods and say who's going to be impacted positively and negatively. Anytime you change or move, there are going to be people that are going to be positively impacted and negatively impacted. I think the nice thing you see here is there are 4 communities that are going to have a little bit longer commute time, but 8 communities either will have less commute time or improved commute time and access to the facility here in Flagstaff. The last one I'm going to talk about before I hand it over is really the air traffic. That's been a discussion topic. The air asset for Northern Arizona Health Care is an extremely important asset for the region, and being able to get patients quickly to the level 1 trauma centers Steve was talking about. We currently provide life-saving critical transport to patients so they can get to this level 1 trauma center. Many of you may or may not know we have about 8 bases located throughout the region, one of those being in Flagstaff, and it has always been located in at least my recent memory, to the Florida airport there. And we are directed by air traffic control. So we do not anticipate any additional impact in the Fort Hill area based on current experience and current flight paths that we currently have.
So, just touching on ease of access, transit, and road design. You all know we have been in discussion with Mountain Line since the beginning of this process, and we do plan and will support Mountain Line's efforts to secure funding for future expansions of the public transit system. NIH, as Tiffany said earlier, will provide shuttle service between the nearest current bus stop and the future campus at no cost to any rider. We have partnered with Mountain Line to locate and design bus shelters on the campus. All roads being improved will support bus transit, bikes, and pedestrian traffic with enhanced safety features. We will continue to provide Lyft and Uber rides for patients who do not live on a bus line. Right now, we are averaging about 1,600 rides a year we already provide to the community. And patients covered by the Arizona Healthcare Cost Containment System, commonly known as Access, are provided rides to and from healthcare services at no cost. We talked earlier about the road design. We partnered in a very collaborative fashion with the city of Flagstaff and Metro Plan to submit for a $45 million USDOT raise grant to assist with the improvements of Beulah Boulevard. It's been a great partnership we've had with the city of Metro Plan. It was mainly funded from an engineering perspective by NIH, and we will know more about that in June. The Beulah improvements will include a realigned Mountain Dell Road intersection, improving safety with a 90-degree intersection and protected refuge lanes. For those of you that are familiar with that intersection now, it is at a very steep angle as it comes into Beulah. We're working with ADOT to accommodate for the widening of the J.W. Powell and I-17 bridge, another partnership between ourselves and the city of Flagstaff, as part of their planned in-kind replacement to widen that bridge when they replace it over the I-17. And the city of Flagstaff has already agreed to be the lead applicant for a bridge improvement program grant that could bring upwards of $36 million in federal funds to Flagstaff. So on the topic of Fort Hill and event traffic, accessing the Fort Hill events, widening the J.W. Powell Bridge and Beulah will provide additional capacity and improve safety during events. As is required now, special event organizers must plan and implement traffic mitigation plans for the events held at Fort Hill. Improvements to Beulah and the J.W. Powell I-17 Bridge will provide additional options for special event traffic. And when we talk about it in concept or in context of the current campus versus the proposed location, NIH patients currently must navigate traffic congestion for events hosted downtown. Seasonal tourism contributes to downtown traffic that impedes patient access to FMC, which will be highly removed through this relocation. And the proposed campus will be more easily accessible via I-17 and I-40 for patients and ambulances, even during special events. So we have and continue to partner with Coconino County. I know there was some discussion from the county at our last meeting. We have met with them since that last meeting and continue and plan on continuing our partnership with them to make sure that this project works for the county. But to date, we're already working on protecting the park's boundaries while maintaining and improving access. The Health and Wellness Village was re-envisioned with the more intense, dense development occurring to the north. Our plan aligns with the county's master plan as we incorporate connectivity with roads and trails. Preservation of the existing trail network, realignment of Purple Sage Road north of the existing road, providing additional buffer between Silver's Trail and the road. The shift of Purple Sage Road will give back 14 feet of current roadway easement to the county. And throughout the 172-acre Health and Wellness Village, there are multiple integrations with the existing park and Silver's Trail. So I wanted to talk a little bit about our guiding principles for the campus design. We hired our architectural team nearly 2 years ago to start working on the project, and one of the first things they put us through was a visioning session. And for those of you who have never been part of a visioning session from a design perspective, it's there's no drawing. It's nothing but talking. It's nothing but an idea process to really get out of us what we feel are the most important components to make our project successful. And out of that came creating a campus and facility that is connected to its community, site, nature, and the future development. Create an authentic building design that is respectful and responsive to its natural environment. Respect the natural resources of the development and model good stewardship of the environment, including the 32 acres of protected land that Tiffany mentioned during the presentation. Creating an environment and operations that provide for innovation, operational excellence for continuity of care, staff retention and recruitment, and a real patient and family experience that we can't currently give at our current campus. Nolan will talk more shortly about sustainability and resiliency, but another topic that I want to make sure that we touched on was really talking about an all-risk ready and flexible hospital. And by all-risk ready, we mean, are we ready for everything? Are we ready for mass casualty? Are we ready for a mass issue from a fire perspective or from an injury perspective? We are building all of those concepts into the design of our new hospital to make sure that we are prepared for the unknown, because we have proven over the last couple of years at our existing campus that campus was not prepared for the unknown. I'll turn it over to Nolan here for a few slides.
Thank you, Steve. I appreciate it. Nolan Romy with WSP. We're the engineer over all the systems inside the building and the high performance evaluation of the building as a whole. As Steve mentioned, from the visioning concept, we were there shoulder to shoulder all the way through to make sure that those guiding principles were the weighing factors of how we did gauge and view performance in the space. So based on comments and input from the last session, we decided to dive a little bit deeper into the Energy Star 75 performance and the overall energy density performance. Again, those guiding principles, and Tiffany mentioned this in her piece too, are not just around trying to beat metrics and for the sake of beating metrics, but to show long-term resiliency and provide better outcomes and care over a building that could be a 50-year plus investment for the community. So both investment for patient care and for public access and wellness. So the first piece here is around the reduction of energy. We're currently have been doing building modeling since the early blocking tackling concepts all the way through. What you're seeing now is actually the current modeling as of March of 2023. Currently 18% below the Energy Star 75 metric, so we're well below that target market that we set for ourselves for phase one improvement. And then we're also 21% below the CBEX average for hospital in 2018, which is the last time that we showed the baseline metric. So what you're seeing here to the right is the breakdown of all those systems and how they contribute to that energy efficiency. So we are 45% reduced when you look at the existing peak demand of the existing hospital. So I think there was a question in the previous session, does building a new hospital make sense on the environment? Does it make sense on our energy use index? And it does. It reduces it by almost half. And I mentioned that we're not only modeling it as we move through the project, but we're also using it to optimize the glazing system. We're using it to optimize the insulation. So we're not just checking a box and over insulating everything. We're looking at it to make sure that we're using the right glass and the right facades, making sure that we're optimizing that cost of the hospital and being able to improve savings where we can and turn that money into a different piece of the hospital through a better operational model versus just building the same built environment. And our construction partners, as we're working shoulder to shoulder, to achieve that on a daily basis. The last piece, and I'll talk on this more when we get to the carbon section, is the investment of heat recovery technology that we're using, where we're actually taking the heat that we're pumping cooling into the building, we're taking heat out of the building. We're actually using that heat and using an electric compressor to drive that, and that is what's creating heat as opposed to burning natural gas. So kind of keep that in the back of your mind. We'll get into it a little deeper here in another slide. The other side of this is that heat pump chiller and some other technologies and systems that we're investing in reduce our water consumption by roughly 20 million gallons over a traditional system. And that is not only a water use reduction, but then you also look at the CO2 that has to be saved from that water reduction, treating the water, transmitting it to the site, going through its whole process again. It's a total piece of our overall carbon footprint. The last session, Steve really spent a lot of time talking about how to focused on supply chain and reuse on site. He went through an example of how they were using blue blankets and packs for sterilization. That has been an ongoing discussion since day one. Again, how we program the square footage of the hospital, how we engaged user groups, how we now are looking at laying out all the details of the constructed environment. We'll hand off to supply chain conversations of how they contract with vendors, what makes the most sense for getting supplies to Flagstaff, breaking those down and making that as resilient as possible and as efficient as possible. Any questions before I move on? Great.
Yeah, just take a second.
Okay.
Actually, I do have a question.
Please.
Thank you. On the, I don't know if this is in your area, but possible use of renewable energy. Well, you mentioned the heat, recirculation, but what about solar? And are you still considering using gas element for your heat?
That is a great tee-up question to the slide I just pulled up. So, one of the questions in the last session was around what is our carbon strategy and how does it play into the overall lifespan of the building? Your comment about renewables and natural gas on the site. We'll go into this next slide, but this first waterfall diagram, it may be harder for people in the back to see. The first half. So the gray bar to the left is a traditional building. Say the first 2/3 that you can see a faint gray line under it is what we can do with the site and how that reduces our carbon strategy and what we can actually affect. Energy efficiency is that very first bar. And we always think that getting natural gas and driving energy efficiency and energy recovery is the real linchpin. It actually represents about 30%, and it does affect a great deal of the hospital. We've been very focused on it. NIH has looked at it from an investment strategy and participated in all of our decision making. The next couple pieces, as you look to that, only make up another 20%. So that's 50% is what we can do with this constructed on-site project. The other 50% of NIH's commitments to carbon reduction and the 2050 commitment is around the partnerships, supply chain, vendors, materials, their ongoing internal reuse of materials. That is what will make up the next piece of this. And they've done a very good job of outlining it in the development agreement, but we're prepared to answer further questions as needed. So getting into what we're doing specifically around our carbon reduction strategy and that first 50% with our built environment development of the site. The majority of our heating is being provided by electricity through that heat pump technology we talked about. We're actually recovering the heat we're taking out of the hospital from our cooling process. We're using electricity to drive that heat. And that will provide heat the majority of the year. It will provide all the baseline heat for.
You say majority. What is majority?
That's fine. So majority means all the summer months, most of the fall, most of the spring, roughly 7 months a year, those heat pump chillers will provide all the heating, not just to heat the building, but also to heat domestic hot water, to provide all the heating processes. The rest of the year, we have incredibly high efficient, 96% efficient boilers that will provide, let's see, that trim up in order to meet that heating demand in the winter when we get into the severe seasons. The reason for that is we are a level 1 trauma center. And so resiliency is the most paramount piece. In an extreme cold environment, that Flagstaff can be in the winter months, those boilers give us the ability to provide redundancy in a very small footprint, so we don't have to build as much central plant to do it. The other piece of it is there's 8 of them, and so we scale them up and down in very small modules to meet only the demand that we need at that time.
Those boilers will be electric or
They will be natural gas. Because natural gas in today's market and today's development is the most resilient fuel source that we can get to the site. The heating aspect. So,
Electrical is not considered, we don't consider electrical power to be as efficient or as resilient, like you said.
it can be true. It has challenges just like any grid system does. And so if we were to change those to electric, all electric, our generators get much, much bigger. The amount of improvement that we need to see to the site has more disruption, more substations, other places. So natural gas is being used as an element and as a resilience measure for this hospital. But we have studied it to make it as minimal as possible and provide the highest level of performance and highest level of safety and risk mitigation for the hospital. So, let me go ahead and I'll answer your on-site renewables question while we're at it. Okay. We do have, we've provided, and what you're seeing in the top 2 really small visuals, and then that kind of graph out to the side, that's the solar potential of our design as we masked the hospital. And going all the way back to visioning, and we presented 3 versions of the blocking diagrams to NIH. Photovoltaic potential was actually one of the key factors that they voted on. When we studied and weighed and measured it, we continued to defend where those photovoltaic panels could go over time. I think Tiffany outlined in her presentation, we have the infrastructure to accept photovoltaic at a point in the future when we have investment money or grant money to make that investment. But as part of the initial day 1, phase 1, it does not have financial liability for what is best for patient care or to drive and meet the needs of the program of the hospital at this time. So, did that answer your question?
Yes.
Okay, great. Next bullet, all medical equipment, kitchen equipment are being evaluated, and we're using electric equipment where it makes sense. Again, where it makes sense for that equipment to be electric fired and can be readily accessed, maintained, and serviced in the Flagstaff community. Right? Some of those high performance pieces of equipment have really high maintenance requirements. And so asking vendors to drive halfway across the state to do those on a monthly service contract kind of starts to defeat the purpose of feeding a new carbon neutrality strategy. Again, that 50% of your vendor relationships, service relationships, that long-term 50-year plus strategy has got to be measured with that. And those are the lenses that we're looking at medical and kitchen equipment selections with. So, third point here does go back to electrification does reduce those emissions over time. So it's not just the limiting the amount of natural gas that we're using, but NIH's partnership with APS and Flagstaff's partnership with APS to make those renewables and other strategies that they're using at the grid level and at our system level will pay benefits back into the overall carbon calculation we use for this offsetting strategy. So, I think I've already talked enough about the vendor partnerships and how that piece works. We are using the embodied carbon metrics when we're doing our structural design and evaluation of the project. We actually have our structural steel fabricators on as our collaboration partners since design development of this project. They've been helping us reduce steel costs. They've been helping us reduce the overall steel weight of the project, suggesting advanced technologies that limit the amount of welding and reducing the tonnage at the same time. And so towards the end of the project, we'll look at that total embodied carbon. So,
Yes, sir. A couple questions. Have you evaluated geothermal heating? Is that applied air or is that a viable option?
It's a great question.
The second one is, as far as the solar panel analysis, with your parking field there, are you able to build a structure, say that's out here? Would that be a viable option in phase one? Sarah?
Sure.
First question, did we evaluate geothermal? We did actually. So our heat pump chiller technology that we have in design currently at the hospital, we looked at geothermal heat pump chillers at that large scale, system scale heat pump chiller. There's not a cost advantage to doing that. And the efficiency of the chiller is actually greater when you are extracting chilled water and converting that, because the temperature differential on the side of that chiller has a better potential performance for the full season, especially when you have the hospital that you constantly have heating and cooling loads, right? So when we evaluate those systems, we actually look at what the sweet spot is, that the chillers are optimized and running 24/7, 365 days a year. We're making table and centuries.
So there's other climates that probably are better suited for that system now.
There are other climates and other soil conditions, right? The Fortet Hill site has a big geographic change in the middle of it, and so that's the part where it gets really, really difficult. It also helps if you have a groundwater source below you that you can do a closed loop heat exchange. I've actually done that in Georgia, and it works really effectively other places.
This is kind of related to that question. So I read about buildings, big buildings, but I read about big buildings that are using all electric, like high-tech buildings and all kinds of interesting things. Now, there might be a weather factor or some other things, but why is this, I mean, is the analysis that that's not possible with a healthcare building in particular? Or is there some other factor, or do I have it wrong? All electric buildings.
No, you have it right. We do a large amount of highly high-performance buildings of all types. A lot of them are going electric. We're actually doing the first all-electric hospital right now in Southern California. The interesting part, it was a charge from the owner to make it all electric, and we had to come back to them in the middle of design development, and it was actually the limiting factor was the electrical grid side. So we're having to put in natural gas in that hospital for the first 10 years because the utility provider couldn't get us power to the site. Enough power to the site with redundancy at the substation level, which is a high voltage level way upstream. And so they're evaluating that based on what makes sense. Now, this is in a Southern California climate. They don't have a design temperature below 38 degrees. And so their heating demands are not nearly as high as this hospital. Well, yeah. And so that is where you look at the trade-off of that. And for this site, that's kind of why I mentioned the way we have the boilers in very small increments to kind of ratchet up and down. It's to really meet the extreme temperatures of being at 7,000 feet and having sub-zero design temperatures in your most extreme cases. We're also looking at, when we make those considerations around how we're going to heat the building for the long-term strategy, what climate change would be as a 50-year building. So winters can be more harsh and summers can be a little hotter. And so our plant can accommodate that and it's calculated our overall efficiency. So. I'm sorry, remind me.
Solar.
Oh, the solar, you said, yes. The parking has been evaluated with the ability for future structured canopies and the structured canopies to be able to accept photovoltaic. And our electrical systems have been, same systems are being designed to accept those from a roof structure would be able to handle parking as well.
It's not feasible to do that in phase one.
Not from a cost perspective. I think it's something that we're hoping that we can find partnership in the next couple of years. There are companies that are bringing some of these to market now, where they can neutralize some of the cost components. So it's not something that we're being off. It's just not something that we're able to commit to today.
Any further questions on the sustainability resilience? Great, appreciate it. Thank you.
Thanks, Colin. So just to talk a little bit about the redevelopment process for the existing campus, we've heard this as a concern, and rightfully so, since the beginning of this process. And our answer has been fairly consistent for about the last 6 or 9 months or so. So we are committed to seeing the current campus enhance the surrounding neighborhoods in the downtown district. I've heard from people that they think we're going to leave it vacant and it's going to be a blight in the community. I can tell you that is absolutely not our plan, not from a financial perspective or from a community stewardship perspective. Our plan, and something that we're already underway on, is to have a true, transparent, collaborative process through a community redevelopment advisory council. That advisory council has been formed. Some members of that advisory council are sitting in this room right now. We have already retained the services of Puma, which is an urban management company out of Colorado. The reason we selected them, on top of them being a great partner, they were the company that was already working with the city of Flagstaff and the Downtown Business Alliance on re-envisioning what the future of downtown could look like. So we thought they were a great partner for us to kind of add our location just north of downtown into. So we plan on, shortly after we get the work started on the new campus, really engaging Puma and having meetings with the community. Some members of the community that are in this room have already been in meetings with us. We invited Puma to town about 6 months ago. We had 2 days worth of kind of open house meetings with city staff, community members, business advocates for the city. And so they have already seen what Puma's process looks like. And in addition to the work that we plan on doing with Puma, we are meeting with the city planning and development leadership to align the FNC visionary size with the regional plan update. So Sarah's here. It is fairly coincidental timing that process is kicking off, and our process is kicking off. So we plan on plugging ourselves into that process to make sure that we're aligned in our goals and strategy.
Okay, we are in the home stretch. I'm sure everyone is ready for this. So a couple more public comments that we're going to address here. So there was a question last time about what's the impact on the existing medical infrastructure that's around the campus. And so what we took the opportunity to do is really look at all of the infrastructure around the campus. And what you're going to see is 3 different color codes. They're yellow, green, and red. And red are the ones that will be relocating. Green are the ones that will be staying. And then yellow is really the opportunity to relocate. There's a variety of relocation within those. And we will work directly with all of those practices to ensure what we're doing. For example, just yesterday, I think it was our supervisor who's a GI physician. They're going to plan on maintaining their surgery center over here and probably have some kind of clinical space in this location. Many of you, I think, were on planning and zoning when you approved the Cedars development. It's kind of the box on the top right up there. It was originally planned from Apricus. So we had the opportunity to lease that building from the developer. And so we're planning on putting primary and secondary services in that infrastructure. So primary care, physical therapy, imaging, et cetera. And so we will maintain a presence in Central Flagstaff, but primarily for those services that you're going to access on a regular basis. You're not going to do knee replacements there, et cetera, but when you're a primary care doctor, et cetera. And so as you look through all the others, we were working very closely with the positions to decide who wants to move, who needs to move, and who, I guess there's not anyone that has to move. And once we have all of that kind of dialed up, then we will work with a third-party developer on what a potential medical office building could be on the existing site. So. Speak slower. I'm going to buzz through this one. We went through this last time. About 300 individuals and community leaders supported us, as well as all of these others listed on here. If Steve goes to the next slide, just as a reminder, we continue to have community engagement. We've held well over a couple hundred meetings in the communities that we service, both here in Flagstaff as well as down in the Verde Valley. And we've also had recent meetings just as recent as last week with some of our Coconino County leadership, Mountain Line ADOT, Coconino County Parks and Public Works. There was a Commerce Authority and Congressman Eli Crane that came up with our facility as well. So really, culmination of all the information that we provided is really a ask or request of the commission is one, we would request the opportunity to respond to public comments and questions during today's meeting. And we would like to forward you to approve our request here today. We've been working on this for over 2 years from start to finish, and so we respectfully request the commission vote on this evening and recommend for approval to City Council. So with that, we'll pause and open for any comment.
Thank you. One of you had a question. This is a kind of a high level. I tried to do a bunch of reading on IPM's health literature. And I'd like to understand why this feels important to you. Just for an example, a hospital, an ambulatory care center, of course, are the main items. Offices, those tend to be located on anybody in the city I've ever lived in. Once you get to residential, well, it's not residential for healthcare related stuff, it's residential. And then things like a conference center, I ask myself, is there a need for a conference center, so on and so forth. So I get to thinking, what is the thinking behind? It's really, from our perspective as a planning and zoning commission, it's a mixed use development that's anchored by a hospital. It could be much like a mall is anchored by a department store. So what is your thinking behind creating that kind of something rather than a new hospital, which is the discussion up to now has been about why do you need the hospital? I bet you there's no one disagrees with that.
You'll be surprised. But I would say tonight when we're talking about phase one, we are talking about that. Phase two is your broader question around the health and wellness village. And so I think a couple things are changing in healthcare. So one, I think we've talked about it a lot. It's probably the only industry that I'm aware of in the country that all of the revenue is essentially fixed as a revenue source, right? So we don't get paid anymore as stuff goes up in cost. And all of the expenses are variable, right? So labor goes up, you'll hear a lot about that, we invest a lot in labor, et cetera. And so as we move from an acute delivery system, so when people get sick, we take care of them. That's going to continue to occur until the end of time. We believe for us to be sustainable and be successful long term, we need to better manage people's health care and make sure that they don't always have to access our facility. And one way that you do that is through health and wellness and in the broader village perspective. So healthy living style, community, financial planning, things of those nature that all contribute to the overall social determinants of health. And so that's why we believe the broader village is important to the overall wellness. Yeah.
So I don't get the reasoning for needing hotels on the property. I don't get the reasoning for needing housing on the property. And, why aren't we just building a hospital with a wellness village if that is needed? Or why aren't we just building a hospital in ACC? So I just don't get the reasoning behind any of that.
Yeah, so I'll answer that, the housing one first. So while we absolutely want to bring housing to the community and it's part of our plan, it's also part of our regional activity center. So there is a density component to housing that we have to bring as part of the regional activity center. With that said, we also know that the city council has declared a housing crisis in the city of Flagstaff. And as Josh mentioned earlier, part of that social determinants of health is access to housing. It is economic development. So we do feel that that plays into the overall picture of having a healthy community. From a hotel perspective, we are asking for zoning for a hotel. I can't tell you right now that we're definitely building a hotel or when we're definitely building a hotel. I think it's important to understand that this development and the vision of this development is a 20-year vision that we're trying to, through a zoning case in the year 2023, try and leave some flexibility for us to be able to meet the needs of the community both from a health perspective and from a business perspective. So if we do go forward with a hotel, it's going to be something that's thoughtfully vetted out from a pro forma perspective and something that is a need for the community. I will also add from just a medical perspective, it is very common to have a hotel on site at a healthcare facility, not only for visitors of patients, but also for visiting either faculty or physicians.
So to me, currently, and it's too small, Taylor House would, serves that need for people who come in from outside of the community to stay near the hospital. Obviously, it's underbuilt, Taylor House. And I'm not sure when they charge anymore for staying there. But why wouldn't you look at, if you were looking at something like that, having some type of viable lower cost option and relocating Taylor House with the hospital instead of envisioning a hotel in the future?
Sure. I think it's two different populations we're talking about. We do envision either replicating Taylor House and or leaving Taylor House where it is to service the population of patients and visitors that it currently services. So what we're talking about is something that is incremental to what we're already providing, something that the community probably already is. We already have visitors coming from out of town to stay in hotels. That's why I say we're not trying to force the issue of having a hotel. We're trying to leave the flexibility for us to be able to have it in the future.
I got a question. So I'll take what Carol said and go a little further with it. It almost feels like the Northern Arizona Health has taken a lot of some land, going after entitlements, and now we're becoming a developer. So that's kind of what it smells like. Gonna get the hospital, now we're gonna do all these other things.
Yeah, so true. It is what we're doing. I think it's important to note that what we're talking about tonight is the phase one component of it, and we will be back in front of you for phase two with a level of detail and business planning around it that is similar to what you saw from the hospital. So I do think that needs to be kept in mind as we have our discussion tonight. So yes, in essence, in order to make this health and wellness village a possibility for the community, we do have to become a developer. Our intention is to not be the developer. Our intention is to partner with developers. We are self-developing the hospital and ambulatory care center. It is our core business. We are building it ourselves. We are doing it through our own dollars and our own contracting. That is not our intention for the rest of the property. It's to partner with developers to bring these things to the community.
So to me, I think that doing this village and not just building a hospital in ACC, because if you were building a hospital in ACC, you could locate it in a different area of the community, which would be more centrally located to everyone in the community. But by building this village, you're not centrally located. You're not, I sit on this commission as a representative of the city. I don't serve on this commission as a representative of the outline of the trauma center that you outlined. Okay, so my concern is for the citizens of Flagstaff and being able to get to the hospital quickly, because there are, I mean, minutes count. That's why you want to be near the airport, right? Because minutes count. But minutes count to our population of the city of Flagstaff. So when you tell me that Cheshire is going to be, it's going to take a lot more time for people from Cheshire, from Baderville, you know, some parts of Donny Park, I believe, will take longer. The area of town I live in will take longer. There are going to be people who are in trauma who can't get to the hospital quickly. You also referenced that you serve a third of your clients come from the reservation, and if they're driving here, they won't. It'll be further to drive. I mean, I just don't know why we need this village as opposed to why we need a new hospital in HCC.
Yeah, and I did do a good job of explaining that on the time study slide. Obviously, there is not an ideal location that doesn't impact anyone for healthcare delivery in the city or surrounding community, right? So in this move, it gets better for a lot of people and it gets worse for some, right? And so I think the thing we have to think about is for the tribal nations that we do service, while the mileage distance might be a little further, it's actually faster from a time perspective because they can get on bigger thoroughfares to get there. There are certain communities, yes, as we were very transparent, that will have longer times. But the opposite of that is right now, if you put that up, you would say Ponderosa Trails takes longer to get to the hospital than Cheshire, as an example. And so it's a trade for various parts of the community. We've studied it in multiple fashions over the last 2 or 3 or 4 years of what the ideal location was. If we could populate it right smack dab over the city center, and there wasn't going to be any growth, most of the growth of the community in the future, as you guys probably saw, is actually to the south and west. So we think we'll actually become closer for most of Flagstaff. I don't know if there's anything else.
Yeah, I appreciate your point, Commissioner, about you speaking on behalf of the citizens of Flagstaff, but I can tell you as NAH leadership, we speak on behalf of the region. We're very respectful of the fact that our hospital will serve Flagstaff and is located in Flagstaff. We have a population of 1 million people to think about, and we do feel that this is the right and ideal location for the majority of our patients to serve the region.
Okay. Yes.
Chair, I just wanted to remind you about True Hours public comment.
I know.
I have a couple questions. I'll start easy. And basically what I'm looking for is to kind of tie up some, dotting I's and crossing T's and like the specific points. Because I think we only have one shot at this and want to see everything in writing, and I think everybody else does too. And I appreciate that you addressed so many questions from the previous sessions that we've had and things that have come your way. So my easy question right now is, can you talk a little bit more about the specifics of the language about the open space easement and how it's going to be available to the public and what you have decided on for that active recreational amenity? So those were 2 loosely defined things that I think maybe you've come to some determination on that we'd like information on.
Yeah, so, and you're talking about the 22 acres that we have west of the Ambulatory Care Center and Hospital. It is completely open space to the community. We're not going to close down. The campus can be accessed at any time. We did, I would say, have some tacit agreement with Parks and Rec about that. We have not gotten to the point of detail with them. I think we've kind of committed to provide this, but we're going to look to work with the City Parks Department exactly what that looks like. They did send us some examples of what that could be in the future, and we told them that we were what they sent us was more than acceptable. It's just kind of detail that we plan on working out as we draw closer. So we don't know exactly what that is right now.
That sort of helps. I wish there was a little further description on it. As far as the energy efficiency, and I appreciate the 25% Energy Star. I was just wondering if you're aligned with any of the other building guidelines or looking to any of those for a direction like for LEED or any other certifications or some of the things that I, saw were, the American Society for Healthcare Engineering or Healthcare Without Harm, and greenhouse gas protocols and some of their requirements. And I'm just wondering if you're looking to any of that and then any of what you put up is actually going to be in writing within the specific plan and within your rezoning.
Yeah, sure. I'm going to let Nolan answer that.
I appreciate that. So, I'm a member of American Society of Healthcare Engineers, and I have served on the FGI board. There's performance requirements that we put up here, the CBEX ratings and all that is based on the requirements of both ASHRAE and the American Society of Healthcare Engineers and the performance guidelines required for the FGI design guidelines. So everything that we put here and in the development agreement and our performance narrative is absolutely based in those industry standards and exceed them, right? Because we're also not just looking at what's prescriptively required under the current building code or under the current license, state licensure. We're looking at what the trend is going to be for the next code cycle through that kind of thing. So, did that answer your question?
It does, yeah. I'm kind of happy that and as far as the standard of 25% Energy Star, can that be part of the specific plan so that all future development has to build to a certain level? Oftentimes you see that in agreements among master plan communities for residential, any developer that comes in is going to have to build to a certain standard. I'd like to see that in here.
Yeah, so our intention is yes, and if it's not clearly lined out in the TA now, we will clearly line it up. I will say, because we've had this discussion internally, we were talking about multiple types of buildings, and not every one of them may adhere to Energy Star 75 like healthcare does. So last we talked about it, was trying to find some equivalent rating to that to go across different types. Thank you.
I just wanted to say, let's make sure that it's important to use this for questions, and because we will have discussion amongst ourselves.
So I have another question. I have two questions. One's to you and one's to Malcolm. So my question to you is, part of my problem like this is that you're planning a 7-story 160-foot tall tower. The costs for the city to service that with fire, and I know we heard from the fire department about what they'd be doing, but a lot of that is, taxing our community. And so my question is, my comment and then question is, I don't think it's a good design. I think you could design better and come lower and have maybe more wings to the tower, lower the tower to 5 stories. Perhaps then we don't need this tall ladder that's going to cost the city a lot of money. I realize the city will still need more personnel, but if we can save money by a better design that fits within the standards of the planning and zoning codes, I think that would be a better design all in all. And then I'll ask I have a question of Mountain Line, and so I'll ask that so you don't have to send me the microphone again. But I just wanted to know from Mountain Line how much they project it would cost to have a line out to the hospital, and how long do they believe it would take to serve that proposed location?
Okay, I'm gonna just stop. I'll hand to you this in a second, but I'm really conscious of the fact that there are a ton of people ready to comment, make part of the comment, and we don't want to make them wait forever. And we will have a period that we'll set aside to discuss, sort of our views on, what we think are various things here and there. And I'd rather not take that kind of discussion into with the applicant because it's, we're gonna run out of time here. So, but
I
I,
asked Mountain Line that question.
absolutely, and I think, yeah, we all want to talk to Mountain Line, we requested that.
Right.
And we also talked to a couple of others. So, but let's let NAH answer the question as they'd like, and then, kind of
Sure. So appreciate the question and understand. I think I would, outside of your prior comment, I would disagree that a better design is a smaller building with more wings. We experienced what 50 years worth of improper design and growth look like on a healthcare campus. We're committed to not only ensuring that we're designing a building that maximizes efficiency for our staff and patients, and we said time matters, right? Well, time matters also in how we get our patients and where we get them to the building. And that vertical or horizontal multiple wings construction is not efficient in healthcare design. Vertical construction, there's a very good reason that hospital towers are usually called hospital towers. And if you go to most hospitals of any scale, they're usually built taller. And what we have designed is a very common chassis for an inpatient healthcare system. So I do think we are looking at 50 years of growth and being smart in how we grow and making sure we don't get ourselves in a situation 10 or 15 years from now where we're again capped from capacity and creating an inefficient place for our patients and our staff to be.
Good evening, Commissioners. Heather Allen, serving as the CEO for Mountain Line Transit. Want me to start with your question? Sure, of course. So Mountain Line estimated the cost of serving the hospital with a new route to be roughly $1.2 million. We have, that would provide 20-minute frequency, which is what the current hospital has with Route 2. It would require 3 vehicles to do that because it is an hour-long route from downtown to the hospital and back to the new location and back.
And how long do you think it would take to?
How long until we would be able to implement service?
Yes.
If we had an agreement in place, we would be able to offer that service probably on the first day that the ACC opens. Our longest delay for delivery of that service is delivery of vehicles. So again, this will take 3 vehicles to provide, and our last vehicle took 18 months from the day we ordered it till it was delivered.
What about funding? Would you have funding?
So currently Mountain Line does not have the funding required for this service. And so we originally had proposed to NAH a partnership for funding. We requested that they assist with that funding based on the fact that we would not otherwise be serving this location if the hospital and ACC did not exist at that location. When we looked at the map, Mountain Line was able to realign several service routes and provide about 30% of that 1.2 million, and we were seeking just over 800,000 from NAH. At this point in time, what we've told City Council is that we plan to pursue additional public funding through the ballot initiative in November of 2024 to operate that service. So if that initiative is approved by City Council and goes on the ballot in November, we would need to collect about a year's worth of funding to be able to operate that service.
Thank you.
Is there a plan B if that was out measured that would not pass?
So what we have told City Council and Northern Arizona Healthcare is we have to have funding for that service. So if that ballot measure failed, we would still be in the same position we are right now, which is identifying funding from other sources to provide that service. We do not have it under our existing funding structure.
And when you met with NAH, did they agree to that $800,000 funding?
We had multiple conversations with NAH, and they did not have the funding capable of making that commitment. And it was at that time we agreed to pursue it as a public question.
Thank you. Okay. Any other questions?
we also, I want to take a little break, a quick break before public comment, but I wonder if this is good for sustainability is here.
Jenny is on.
Jenny's online. I know there were some questions.
No, I'm gonna talk to somebody talking.
Oh, I'm sorry. So, yeah, Jenny, let's see, I want to see if we have some questions. I know I have questions for you about sustainability, if anyone else does. I am interested in, one of the things on my mind is, this is definitely not an infill project, and it's moving from inside the city project to a edge of town project. And I'm wondering, in terms of sustainability, how did you look at that? How did you, I don't know that all factors are sort of equal when you're considering the goals and policies, or, but how, is it possible to talk kind of generally about how you approach that?
Sure. Thank you, Chairwoman Jones. So Jenny Neiman, Climate and Energy Program Manager in the Sustainability Office. I'm going to keep my video off as the connection is fairly choppy. So I thank you for the question. In terms of sustainability, you know, we looked from the beginning at kind of the whole picture, right? We have, you know, a number of different sections in the carbon neutrality plan. So we look at building energy, we look at transportation, we look at waste and consumption, are kind of those three core things that we would look at for this sort of project. On the transportation side, I think to your, you know, comments about infill versus sort of a more out of town development. In that case, we really rely on the traffic impact analysis process, right, to give us a picture of the number of trips that will increase. Tiffany mentioned it in her presentation. This, you know, development will increase VMT, right? We know that it will send many more trips kind of out to the southwest side of town. And so that's really our main factor of looking at things of, you know, what sort of trips will there be and how many will there be? The current location of the hospital is very central, as NIH and Tiffany have mentioned, right? And so we know that smaller trips lead to more alternative transportation, right? They lead to more walking, biking, and transit. We know that longer trips, right, and places that are not as centrally leading to more vehicle trips. And so that is what the TIA tells us as well, right? It tells us there's going to be a lot of trips, you know, going down Milton, going down Beulah, you know, through to this development. So, you know, that it really is covered in the transportation process in terms of thinking about that kind of infill versus development on the outskirts. Let me know if that didn't answer the question.
So what's your analysis of that?
Well, our analysis is, you know, we look at, you know, vehicle miles traveled, we look at, you know, trips taken, greenhouse gas emissions will go up. It will make it more difficult to reach the city's carbon neutrality goals, which are to maintain vehicle miles traveled in order to get our emissions down to where they need to be.
Does anybody else have any questions? Well, I may come back to you, but I think, was there anyone else we wanted to talk to before we take a break and for public comment?
Did we go into traffic analysis and kind of placed over
If you want to talk about it. Okay.
Is there a study was released, right?
Is there something you would like to talk to on that?
Should remember it was designated for that.
Okay. Well, yeah, the question is about traffic analysis.
So we have Steph Santana on the line. I know the applicant's traffic engineer here is here as well. I know previously you had a question about trip distribution, I think. Is it still a question? Because I have.
That wasn't this question.
Okay.
That is.
Okay. If it's for staff, Steph is on the line, but again, the traffic and applicant's traffic engineer is here as well.
Yes, so I feel like, you know, we had requested more information on the traffic study because it seemed outdated at our last visit. And we knew that the one was coming, and it sounds like it is here. We're concerned about how the hotel traffic was going to impact this overall, and other outline factors in the graduation and other things that all happen in that area. We'll have to see what analysis was done on that, what the results were.
Hi, this is Steph Santana with the City of Flagstaff Traffic Engineering. I believe this question may be better for NAH to answer on what analysis they perform for events. Is that what you're referring to?
Yes, that was one of them, and just overall what the updated traffic analysis was in general.
Okay, I can talk about the approved Phase 1 TIA, but I will ask NAH to discuss the events in more detail.
We have our traffic engineer here if you'd like to be heard.
Hi there, good evening. John Cartier with SimTech. In regards to the events, the analysis we did was to look at the additional capacity that we would be providing for the park to use with the improvements that were being put in by NAH. So today, when there's an event, we've got a lack of capacity on the roads, but we'll be widening those roads to provide a 4-lane section on Beulah, widening of the bridge. And so we're looking at it actually in the short term, especially in the short term. The park itself on event days will have additional capacity beyond anything that they've had previously, because as we build in phases, we will be putting out traffic in portions. So what you're looking at right now is just phase 1. And we'll keep looking at this as we study each phase of development, but we're building infrastructure as if we're building for the ultimate. And so it'll give us a lot of time and a lot of runway to see what happens with the park. The one thing we've been talking about a lot, and I know already happens today, is when there are events, it requires event management. That will continue to be the case. So even though once we're here, we're in phase 1, we're providing a lot of additional capacity beyond what they have, we would recommend that they still look at event management as their primary control in and out of the park on a day-to-day basis. The plans themselves that we're looking at are to make sure that even if the park has an event, that we can get emergency vehicles in and out of the hospital quickly and easily. So the improvements that are planned actually have slip lanes and bypass lanes in order to allow that to happen.
So we have that analysis in those options. Are there secondary and tertiary entrances like Woody Mountain Road as a backup, or some other entrances if that area becomes congested and it's not passable?
The answer to that would be eventually. In the first phase, we are not anticipating a full connection to Woody Mountain, but we do anticipate that that connection will be there as development continues. Again, once we are past the phase 1, which is just primarily the hospital, we'll reevaluate all of that once again to look at when and how those connections happen and when they can punch through. We really do believe the improvements that are happening here will give the hospital easy access from 2 directions. Even though it seems like Beulah is their access, we've got Beulah heading south out of the city, but we've also got Beulah coming off of the freeway and around, and building in the extra lanes in both directions to make sure we're handling that in the phase 1.
Thank you. Any more questions? Sorry, Dawn. Yeah. Okay. Was there anyone else you wanted to hear from on the sort of staff applicant side before we take a break? Nope, let's do it. And let's keep it short, as short as we can with one. I'd like to make one note before we start with public comments, which is that in the event that we have to continue through the time, as you know, this place closes at 8. So if we have to continue, we can either, actually, Tiffany, everybody here can go either way. But Ricardo's the only one who has a limit on his time on next Wednesday, just 2-hour limit. So the question is, if people could do 2 hours, if you don't, that's not what's there. You want to think about it and let us know before we also meet. Let's make sure. Okay. Because this would be a city hall. All right, so we're ready for public comment on this now. And so the rules are this. If you have 3 minutes, and I think we have someone will call time, probably Becky, and, or maybe Tiffany with her loud voice. And if you are representing 10 people who are present, you can speak for 10 minutes. Those are sort of standard council rules. And so we'll abide by those. If your people aren't all there, you can have to regular 3 minutes. If you can't be in 2 people groups.
No double to be fair.
So anyway, with that, let's go to the first person. This is Luann Mace. Macy, or Mace?
Mace.
Mace. And I'm just going to give you the name of the next person who will be coming up, and that is Jeannie Wiles.
Thank you very much. My name is Luann Mace. I'm a Flagstaff resident, and I work in Arizona Healthcare. My statement will be briefer. I'm going to show my overwhelming support for the new hospital. I joined the NAH organization almost a year ago. I fell in love with this organization from the minute I interviewed. I feel the overwhelming sense of community in both our mission and how we serve. My husband grew up in northern Arizona, so it was right for us to move back here and become active members of the community. Flagstaff is growing, and that growth will continue. There is no turning back. Progress is part of that growth, and with that progress comes great responsibility. Our 50-plus-year-old facility has been stretched to capacity and has been remodeled over and over again to meet the needs of our growing community. It's like a continual game of Tetris, moving and expanding, repurposing with what is available to keep pace. Yet it is not enough. Our community deserves better. What our community deserves is a facility that provides both care during illness and a focus on wellness. A facility that allows families to be part of that care seamlessly. A facility that attracts both providers and services that meet the needs of all of northern Arizona and allow people to receive care closer to home. To be the future of healthcare for those we love, those we care for, and those that put our trust in us. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Jeannie, and then followed by Dr. Deborah Lindquist.
Good evening, my name is Jeannie Wiles. I actually was born at Flagstaff Medical Center, grew up, spent my entire childhood here, went away to college and served in the military and came back after working in 6 different healthcare systems in the military. I've been here for 18 years and have seen this hospital grow and change. And I'm actually here to speak on behalf of our pediatric patient in the NICU. I am clinical manager there, and I'm so thrilled about this new hospital and how it will positively impact our children and our families in the community. Right now, our special care nursery is the only neonatal intensive care unit north of Phoenix for all of northern Arizona. And our current build and our current facility, we do not have private rooms. We have an open bay system. So from me to maybe the lady in the yellow sweater is where our next family sits. And so we don't have a space for families to stay. We encourage them to stay and spend the night with us and stay in the unit and be with their baby and learn to take care of their child, but there's no way they can physically sit and share all night long for 6 months, because we keep some of our babies for 6 months or more in our NICU environment. So this new facility will provide patient rooms so they can have a space to stay with their children, to be part of the care team, to learn how to care for their sick or their super premature infants and be part of that team so that they feel confident going home to take care of their children. There's been so much research on how parents be involved in the care of their children, and that contact of stuff builds neurodevelopmental growth and better outcomes for our patients. And as a community regional center, we want to see families and children growing, becoming stronger, becoming more engaged in our community. And this new hospital with this bill truly supports that for this pediatric and neonatal patient population. So I'm super thrilled to see this. I think it's going to be amazing for our families, something that we completely lack right now and can't support, that we want to, provide that care for everybody.
Okay, thank you, Dr. Lucas. And next will be Tiffany Loriana.
Yeah, hi, I'm Dr. Deborah Lindquist, and I've been practicing at Flagstaff Medical Center since 1991. I'm a medical oncologist, which means a cancer doctor. As things have come more and more future, we have so much more we can do for patients. We can have them live longer. It requires more and more staff to do that. Right now, I'm in an office. I have 2 other people in the little office and 2 other people in an extended entryway. That's the kind of space we're trying to work in. And we're trying to take care of cancer care with patients who need the best and newest of everything. Now we've got circulating tumor DNA, all these new things, new treatments. We need a place to be able to do that well. Thank you.
Thank you. And next will be Eric.
Good evening, Madam Chair and Commissioners. Thank you for your attention and the time you've invested in learning the details and impacts that help and wellness will have on Flagstaff and the patients we serve. I've had the pleasure of serving our Flagstaff community as nurse for over 23 years now. The majority of that time was spent in the Flagstaff Emergency Department. Those 18 years have given me the opportunity to provide a spectrum of care to our community to truly learn who Flagstaff is. During that time, it became incredibly clear to me I had chosen to serve a phenomenal community. A place where family comes first, neighbors care about one another, health and wellness are a priority, and where everyone strives to find a way outdoors. Choosing to transition into a leadership role at NIH was easier than I expected. Northern Arizona Healthcare is invested not only in the communities and the patients we serve, but also in ensuring the betterment and well-being of their people. Over the past 3 years, I've had the honor to serve as a chief nursing officer for our health system. To say managing a health system through a global pandemic has been challenging might be slightly understated. However, these years and experiences have afforded me the opportunity to understand the need for ensuring we have a hospital that is well built and prepared for the healthcare challenges of tomorrow. Our proposed health and wellness village will create a space that is not only safer, but more conducive to healing. A space that will benefit our patients, the community, our nurses, physicians, and techs who work tirelessly to provide the best care. We're not just planning for the next 10 years, we're planning for the next 50 years. We're planning for the future healthcare needs of the people living in Flagstaff and Northern Arizona. We're planning so that we could advance healthcare technologies. We're planning so that we could care for our growing population. We're planning so that we could recruit and retain the best healthcare professionals, and so that all of our patients have a private room when hospitalized. Our staff deserve a campus where they can spend time in nature during their breaks to recharge. The people of Flagstaff and Northern Arizona deserve a health and wellness village designed to ensure safe, high-quality, patient-centered care well into the future. Thank you for your time and attention to such a critically important matter.
Thank you. Next speaker after Derek is John. I can't say.
Nice.
Okay. Two in a row.
So my name is Derek.
I forgot to ask everybody. You should be. Please do state your address for the record.
My
address or?
Just your street.
Sure. So my name is Derek Duquay. I am a practicing physician at Flagstaff Medical Center and have been so for 15 years. I'm also the Chief Medical Officer for Northern Arizona Healthcare. I live at 2272 North Fremont Boulevard and have been there for several years. I'm reading a letter on behalf of Dr. Jennifer Kahn, my colleague at Flagstaff Medical Center and the CEO of Flagstaff Emergency Physicians. Dear Planning and Zoning Committee, for the last 48 plus years, Flagstaff Emergency Physicians, FEP, has been a partner in Northern Arizona Healthcare. Flagstaff Emergency Physicians only hires emergency medicine trained and board certified physicians to provide the highest quality care possible at Flagstaff. We've worked together with NIH to provide for the emergent and urgent medical needs of the Flagstaff community while meeting the needs of the underserved regardless of their ability to pay. Flagstaff Emergency Physicians and the Flagstaff City Council were witness to growth and the need to move from the historic hospital site across Beaver Street to expand the facility between Beaver Street and San Francisco. And there have been multiple expansions since that time to continue to update the physical plant and meet the needs for both general medical care and specialty care, including specialty surgical services for the Flagstaff community. But again, we find our current emergency department physical plant is strained. It was built in the 1990s when the patient and provider expectations were very different. Half of our rooms have curtains, which does not allow for patient privacy. Although we are a level 1 trauma center, our trauma bays are 1990s era. We are very small, making it difficult to accommodate the entire trauma team plus the equipment necessary to care for these critically ill patients. And the lack of single inpatient rooms means that we board patients in the ED, giving us fewer beds for patients in the waiting room. So, as we look to the future for healthcare and delivery in Flagstaff together, please support NIH in its quest to remedy these essential physical plant needs for the future. Having been a trusted and reliable partner for NIH for the previous 4 decades, we look forward to the dynamic and challenging future that lies ahead. Flagstaff Emergency Physicians will continue to serve the Flagstaff community and provide the finest quality emergency healthcare to our patients for years to come. Sincerely, Jennifer Kahn, MD.
Thank you. John, and then Andy Cornejo.
Thank you. John Isaac, 2700 Horseshoe Street, Flagstaff. So I want to start by saying I'm an architect, and I've been in medical centers for my 32 years of my career. I am the lead architect for this project, so I'd love to talk to you about the design and some of the comments you had and the why behind it so you kind of understand it. But I'm here to talk to you more as a resident of Flagstaff. I've been doing this all over Arizona and the West in the U.S., and I have the privilege of doing this facility as well. But I want to tell you why I believe this hospital and this campus in this wellness village must move. And a hospital building really only has one job. Its only job is to facilitate the treatment needs of the patient. Okay, and you've heard it time and time again. I know a lot of these folks in this room. I'm working with them on designing this place, and the current facility and the area around it just can't do that anymore. It's done it for 50 years. Steve did a good job showing you the timeline. We design facilities with a 50-year horizon now. If we do it right and we master plan this new community, we look beyond 50, but we know we get 50. And for this community, if this project doesn't get approved or moved, you're really limiting how we take care of our citizens here. It's wearing out. And I'm not saying that just because I do this for a living. I've been through those halls. I've seen everything in there. You're going to hear a whole lot more, like the NICU service line manager said. It's time for this place to move. And I'm coming to you as a resident of Flagstaff, not as an architect, to get your support to actually say, vote yes on this and get this hospital moved, because it's time. Time's now. So, thank you.
Thank you. I'll ask a question if we get.
Oh, you got it?
Yes.
So again, a big beef of mine is the height.
Sure.
And I've seen hospitals in shorter heights,
yes,
more wings.
Yes.
I don't understand why you cannot do that.
Yeah, I'll tell you.
I met with a hospital administrator in another community, and she said, basically, hey, if it doesn't fit your community, it's bad design.
Correct. So here, and for this community and its growth, we've done hospitals with several wings. And what you look at when you design a hospital is an efficiency of a building for patients and staff and families to circulate through. The growth of the community that Steve showed you up here and what the horizon is for the population of Arizona This hospital is designed to go to 450 beds. At 450 beds, and I'm a planner, I'm a master planner as an architect. At 450 beds, the land use and the land area required to do multiple wings shorter becomes a major hindrance. They would have to buy a whole lot more land. You'd have to cut down a whole lot more trees to be able to get 450 beds in off of a chassis that works around all of the central services. So what we decided to do is stack 2 towers on top of all the services: imaging, pharmacy, lab, surgery, all right below all 300 beds day one. And then when the other beds come online, they're still right above it. It is one vertical ride down to anything you need in an emergency. When you do multiple wings, it is a long push. Long pushes take time. And somebody said, minutes mean everything. So you're talking about an ambulance trying to get through town to get to the facility. When somebody goes, minutes to the OR are just as critical. So we designed a chassis that is straight down, straight in, and it's over, and they're in and getting their care done. So it is fine, and you can disagree with me. It's fine. I'm just saying that's why this is done the way it is. And we didn't go too high. We stopped it at 6 stories to meet the bed need. So that's kind of the basis behind it. So does that help?
And could you go back and design a different design that was shorter?
Could I? If the hospital decided to not go to 400, if the hospital decided not to go to 450 beds to serve the community needs, which I wouldn't recommend because I've seen the numbers, we're shorting the community's ability to get health care if we go less than that. So I could design whatever they need, but the need is a 450 bed horizon.
So if we're looking at that property, you have the ability on that property, there's a lot of property there. I mean, why can't you use the property more wisely instead of housing, looking at building a hospital within the range of what Flagstaff, that we wouldn't need to buy a new fire truck and build within a reasonable height.
So it's at 450 beds. That's okay. At 450 beds, shorter isn't better. Okay, for the efficiency of all of the caregivers that are in here, shorter is not better. It's longer pushes. It's inefficiency of care delivery. In most buildings, and the ladder truck, I'll say it this way. There are buildings all over the state where a ladder truck can't reach the top floor. So the building's designed to be able to get people out and down to a level for a ladder truck to be able to accommodate it. Flagstaff needs a ladder truck. We should just have one. And the fact that we don't have one yet, it is what it is, but we should have one. Or we do have one. So if we have one,
It doesn't go that high.
no ladder truck goes as high as the tallest buildings. It's a non-issue to us. We've designed the building, so in the building code, at 75 feet, it's designed as a high rise. The building is designed to take care of its occupants in any event, so that chief and the fire department could handle any event that's there. That's how it's designed. And if it goes above that, we put in vertical circulation components for the firefighters who used to get people out. We stayed below that on purpose so that we would make it easier for the fire department. So we stayed below the top occupied floor of 124 feet to make it easier. So we got the efficiency for the caregivers and made it short enough so that we don't need fire service access elevators. So that was the compromise we came up with, and to still meet the eventual bed need of 450 beds. So it's a very complicated puzzle, and I think we're looking at something that I think would be a detriment if we tried to redesign it to what you're asking for. That's my opinion.
Thank you.
Next, we have Andy, followed by Jessica Gerard.
Hi, I'm Andy. I live at 2500 West Street 66. I'm reading this on behalf of Catherine Peakway. She's one of our hospitalists at the hospital. So, dear Planning and Zoning Committee members, thank you for this opportunity to speak regarding the need for improvement to our hospital facilities in northern Arizona. You have heard valid concerns from both sides of the issue. As a physician who works in the current hospital building and spends my days in and out of patient rooms all over the hospital, my opinion is based on what is best for my patients' care now and in the future. Here are concrete examples of how my patients' care will be improved at the new campus. When I have a patient on the ward at the far west side of the hospital, even for a simple chest x-ray, they have to be transported the equivalent of 2 city blocks across the bridge to the east side of the main building. This trip not only takes a significant amount of time, it also takes them through hallways of other wards, past staff and family members of other patients. The new building will allow my patients less physical movement and more privacy when being transported for procedures. When I am seeing a patient who is acutely ill, I must turn on the lights in the room and speak to my patient, notably disturbing the patient resting on the other side of the curtain. The new building will allow each patient their own room, allowing appropriate rest and comfort. Patients will not be woken throughout the night while staff attends to needs of their roommates. When my patients have family members that want to come and spend time with them or be present for important conversations, the ability of their family members to visit is determined by the room. If they are in a shared room, there is only physical space for one friend or family member. In the new building, every family will have a space for sitting or sleeping in the patient's private room. Being ill and hospitalized is a stressful time for patients and their families. The new campus addresses concerns such as less distance patients must be moved through the building, private space for patients and families, and even concerns like adequate parking. Medicine has advanced significantly since the 1980s when our current campus was constructed. Unfortunately, as the construction team has already demonstrated, providing adequate updates to the current facility is not possible without unrealistic restrictions to space for patient care. There is just not enough room. Yes, the hospital will be a further distance for some patients and hospital staff and Flagstaff, including myself. It will be closer in distance to most in our community and the surrounding regions we serve. There will be environmental impacts, as there are with any construction project. The team has worked diligently to ensure this new building is built with sustainability in mind, so we are not having another discussion such as this in 30 years. In today's healthcare environment, it is unusual to have a locally owned and operated hospital and healthcare system. Please support your local Northern Arizona healthcare staff so we can create a hospital that is aligned with our patients' experience and perspective in mind. Please support your local Northern Arizona patients and allow us to build the facility they deserve. Thank you again for your time.
Thank you, Jessica, followed by Deborah Scott.
Hello, my name is Jessica Gerard, and I am president and representing the Northern Arizona Association of Realtors. I live at 2229 North Tompkington. We are in full support of Northern Arizona Healthcare and Wellness Village. As realtors, we strive to improve the community in which we live in through protecting private property rights, expanding access to housing, and supporting initiatives that improve the quality of life for our clients and community members. The proposed responsible development and expansion of Northern Arizona of healthcare services and facilities afforded by a Health and Wellness Village does exactly this. Not only will it create lots of annual revenue for the Flagstaff economy and provide quality employment options for our Flagstaff residents, but it includes development on additional residential housing within the Health and Wellness campus, adding desperately needed housing units for Flagstaff's workforce. Perhaps even more exciting may be the prospect of redeveloping the current campus to include different units as well utilized infrastructure that's already in place. With Flagstaff's anticipated growth in the coming years, access to expanded healthcare facilities as well as development of more residential housing units are of critical importance. The proposed Health and Wellness Village will facilitate reaching these goals as Flagstaff continues to grow responsibly. Thank you.
Thank you. Deborah, followed by Casey Rucker. Is Deborah here? Okay, we'll move on to Casey, followed by Stephanie Green.
Hello, excuse me. My name is Casey Rucker, and I'm the Director of Security with Northern Arizona Healthcare. I'm a 30-year resident of the city of Flagstaff, 1750 North Falcon Road. I joined NAH after retiring from the city of Flagstaff Police Department, where I served our community for 20 years. Tonight I'm here to speak in favor of the development of the new hospital. In my current role at NAH, I cover the FMC campus corner to corner. I can personally speak to the need of an updated facility with a better design and space. You know, one of the things that I cherish most about working in the police department was working alongside people who were truly dedicated to the community that they serve. Candidly, one of the things I cherish most about working at NAH is that very same thing. Every day I participate in meetings and coordinated contacts with everyone ranging from Josh and his team to frontline staff, including housekeeping, security, nursing, and physician teams. Every day there's communication about how we can better serve our patients and how we can better serve our community. I would submit that the development of this new hospital serves to do just that. The development of the new hospital is a need today, and it's most certainly a need for tomorrow. I truly believe that our community deserves this. Our families, friends, neighbors, and deserve a hospital that has not only a state-of-the-art facility, but is designed around the development of an environment that fosters patient care and healing. Thank you.
Thank you. Stephanie, followed by Cindy Galloway. Stephanie here? She's not here? You're Cindy then?
I'm Cindy. And, my name is Cindy Galloway. I live on Eagle Crest Drive, and I'm speaking on behalf of Dr. Omar Wani. Dear Planning and Zoning Commission, my name is Dr. Omar Wani, and I'm an interventional cardiologist at Northern Arizona Healthcare and work at the current Flagstaff Medical Center. I've been an interventional cardiologist for 16 years, with 15 of those years here in Flagstaff. I've seen the changes in healthcare across the country, as well as in our own community. I have watched Flagstaff Medical Center change into a regional referral center taking care of the sickest patients in Northern Arizona. While the move to the new facility will personally require me to commute a bit further from my home residence, I am supportive and excited about the move. This new facility will allow us to provide new cardiac services and continue to provide world-class quality cardiac care for our loved ones, neighbors, and friends. I ask that you vote in unanimous approval of the planning and zoning case before you tonight. Warmest regards, Dr. Omar.
Thank you. Next is Angela Peters, followed by Michelle James. Here, I'm good. It's been a little while. Good to take care of.
My name is Angela Peters. I am a registered nurse at NH. My address is 793 East Veteran Drive. I am reading a letter from Dr. David Jakovsky. On behalf of the Core Institute, including physicians at Northern Arizona Orthopedics in Flagstaff, I wanted to relay our support for the potential investments that the hospital and strategic partners are making into the future Flagstaff Medical Campus. As a large independent provider group in town, we recognize that only investments made in healthcare space can drive meaningful care improvement, with the secondary benefit of growing job opportunities for local citizens. Investment into a new infrastructure, investment in health, and a commitment to improving care is nothing less than a commitment to wellness and sustainability of the community. These investments allow independent providers to see meaningful stability in the healthcare environment in Flagstaff and the surrounding communities.
Thank you. And after Michelle will be Andy Bartles.
Hello, Chair and Commissioners. I have rewritten my comments, so hopefully they will read correctly. I'm Michelle James, and I'm the Executive Director of Friends of Flagstaff's Future. We reside at P.O. Box 23462 in Flagstaff. FQ is pleased to finally hear some details from NAH today about their plans for energy efficiency. This is a lot of new information, and I'll admit I haven't had time to study it closely. What I've learned this evening is that NAH is implementing energy efficiency in their new hospital building. However, NIH's plans do not make the hospital carbon neutral for scope 1 and 2 emissions. The time is now to include low carbon and carbon sequestration building materials and to make solid plans to generate and purchase renewable energy. As I'm sure you know, staying and refurbishing the existing hospital will be the best plan to minimize carbon emissions. Building a brand new hospital will create a lot of new carbon emissions. NIH can address the overall carbon emissions related to this proposed new building and the increase in vehicle miles traveled by committing to building 2 carbon neutral buildings immediately or within 2 years of operation. It's imperative that NIH address the community's commitment to carbon neutrality by 2030 and be in compliance with our regional plan carbon neutrality goals and policies. FP would also like to see a fair, equitable, and transparent agreement between the city and NIH that provides a clear understanding of the dollar amount that will be the responsibility of the city and the citizens of Flagstaff to pay for road improvements and fire department needs related to this proposed action. Thank you for your consideration of FQ's concerns and comments.
Thank you. And after Andy is Keith Garrison.
Good evening, I'm Andy Bertelson. I'm Deputy County Manager for Coconino County, Arizona. And I'm representing Coconino County. I live at 411 West Juniper Avenue in Flagstaff. So the NIH property is directly north of Fort Hill County Park, and our position is one of protecting the public's interest in the regional recreational gem for those who enjoy it today and in the future. Coconino County and NIH have had a few meetings to review the initial development concept, discuss a request for easements, and more recently as a follow-up resulting from the March 22nd Planning and Zoning Commission meeting. So thank you for that. We hope to establish regular meetings as we feel it's important that we strive to lay a foundation for a collaborative and neighborly relationship that focuses on mutually beneficial outcomes that best serves the community. We believe that the park will be a very beneficial neighbor to NIH. We have a great bike park, amphitheater, Flagstaff Extreme, fairgrounds, rodeo. It might create some clients in So the county provided input directly to NIH and the city in response to the draft specific plan. I think we wrote a letter in November of 2022. Feedback and priorities came from multiple county departments and the Board of Supervisors. At the previous meeting, the County Parks and Recreation Director reviewed county priorities, and we list them: traffic impacts, emergency vehicle access, traffic analysis at the intersection of Beulah, careful analysis on the number of signalized intersections, access to the park. And we thank you for your comments tonight. We really appreciate those slides, and we'd like to take an opportunity to review those. We also want to thank you for addressing the conversations with Mountain Line, as we, Coconino County, support those conversations in providing public transportation services to this regional facility. We want to protect the park visitor experience and park aesthetics through adequate buffers, request for a formal acknowledgement of the existing large, loud events that can happen, traffic, and that those potential nuisances will not ever need to be mitigated. Ensure an adequate northern access is maintained that can accommodate the type of traffic we experience. And given the significant change north of the county's property and the approach to the park, we'd like a partnership on the master plan, a trailhead, a possible realignment of trails or roads or buildings affect the user experience. We talk about activity center. Fort Hill is an activity center. We haven't had a lot of neighbors historically, and with this partnership and neighborhood experience, it's going to change the dynamic of the area. So today I would like to report that the county is reviewing NIH's request for easements, and we've asked that NIH submit a formal response to the November 2022 letter that we had written, and Chris and NIH indicated that they'll provide a response by the end of next week, so we thank you for that. We also note that the Board of Supervisors is willing to. So hold all calls. And appreciate the opportunity to speak. Thank you.
evening. My name is Keith Garrison. I'm the director for the Children's Health Center for Northern Arizona Healthcare. I reside at 4013 Gannett Way. As the population of Northern Arizona continues to grow, so does the need for pediatric services. The Children's Health Center currently serves over 16,000 patients per year with many different needs and diagnoses. Our multidisciplinary and collaborative approach allows for children and their families to get the care that they need in a one-stop shop close to home. From our Inspire program focused on disease prevention and the reduction of childhood obesity through education and nutrition and services, to our Safe Child program working with law enforcement and family advocates to help children that have been a part of any traumatic experience, we strive to serve any and every pediatric patient. We currently contract with 14 different physician specialists from the Phoenix area to provide services as our current hospital does not have the capacity to serve these children. In addition, if surgical intervention is required, care must be provided in Phoenix as NAH does not have pediatric-specific designed operating rooms, tools, and specialists locally. This requires families to have the greatest need of care to spend time and money making separate appointments with other healthcare systems, waiting for availability for appointments and operations, and to travel to the Phoenix area and pay for overnight stays. And all of this is for only one appointment and can cost upwards of $300 per trip. Think of how many times this must be completed for initial diagnosis, treatment, and follow-up care. This is also assuming that the child is from the Flagstaff area. 50% of the patients that CHC serves is from our surrounding native and tribal lands. They can travel 2 to 3 hours to reach Flagstaff. Asking this population to travel an additional 2.5 hours to Phoenix is added cost to them and continues to limit their access to care. This is a huge disservice to the people in Northern Arizona that deserve the best, most affordable care in the communities in which they reside. The new Health and Wellness Village will allow for significant expansion in pediatric services for the next several decades. This will allow us to perform full services for outpatient, inpatient, and cervical services that are desperately needed in Northern Arizona. With additional state-of-the-art technology, we will be able to recruit the best pediatric specialists from around the country. This will allow families to stay in Northern Arizona for all appointments and be close to home for follow-up treatment and recovery. This is also the reason that Health and Wellness Village is the best concept. We need third-party vendors to be able to assist our children in fighting childhood obesity, providing good nutrition services, updated grocery shopping, good exercise facilities for them to be able to combat this. We need hotels that are close to the facility to allow for families to stay close to their children when they require multiple days of service at a time. In order for NAH to achieve their mission of improving health, healing people, and our vision of always better care of every person, every time together, a state-of-the-art facility is needed with access for people that live throughout Northern Arizona, not just Flagstaff. This new facility will provide the care and services that is long overdue and desperately needed by the people that call this home. Remember that these children will be the individuals that provide our current adult population the healthcare services that they will need in the future.
Thank you. Let's see, that was just Keegan and then stop.
Hello, I'm Keegan Mahoney. I live in Crestview Estates, and I have the pleasure today to read a letter from Joette Walters, the CEO of Tuba City Regional Healthcare Corporation. As the CEO of Tuba City Regional Healthcare, I am pleased to offer this letter to support for Northern Arizona Health's proposed Health and Wellness Village to build upon and expand in efforts to advance health equity across Northern Arizona. Flagstaff Medical Center has provided critical life-saving services to its patients for several decades now, and more than half the patients who receive care at FMC are from outside of the city of Flagstaff. Across the entire Northern Arizona region, there are patients, communities, and local hospitals that rely on NAH to provide high-quality, specialized care closer to home. The demand for healthcare services at FMC is outpacing NAH's ability to provide the needed care, not because NAH providers lack the skill, but because the hospital simply does not have the space to accommodate the patient volumes needing NAH's care. This means our patients must be sent to hospitals much further from their homes. Instead of a 1.5 hour drive to Flagstaff, our patients and their families are facing drives of 4 hours or more to Phoenix and beyond. This distance is a cost burden that makes it impossible for our patients to have the familiar support they need when they must have serious life-saving surgeries and when they need necessary follow-up care that we are not able to provide at Tuba City. NAH has outgrown the current Flagstaff Medical Center campus, and it cannot be expanded to meet the growing demand for healthcare in our region.
NAH's proposal for the future health and wellness village will be a significant investment in the next generation of healthcare. It will ensure that patients across northern Arizona have high-quality, state-of-the-art healthcare closer to home. NAH's proposed health and wellness village, anchored by a state-of-the-art hospital and ambulatory care center, will benefit the community. Flagstaff and northern Arizona residents deserve to have access to the highest quality healthcare. On behalf of the patients, Tuba City Regional Healthcare Services, I support the vote in favor of NAH's future health and wellness village. Tuba City Regional Healthcare Corporation is a tribal healthcare organization which serves the western region of Navajo Nation. Sincerely, Joette Walters.
Thank you. Beth, followed by Beth Cash.
Thank you. I'm going to shout so you guys in the back can hear me. Out in the back. Good evening, Chair and Commissioners. Thank you very much for letting me speak. My name is Sat Best. I live in Paradise, on Paradise Road, 3925 North Paradise. Been there for 35 years. I want to thank NAH for responding to the request some of us made to give us more information about the climate change numbers. I still don't really see a number, a conclusion, a summary. Are we or are we not compliant with the Flagstaff Regional Plan? And are we headed for carbon neutrality in 2030 because of this project, or are we headed the other way? Climate change is a very important healthcare issue. And the recent United Nations Intergovernment panel on climate change report saying that we need to get emissions down by 60% by 2035 or face dire consequences, and so many other sources of information that we all hear. They tell us that we should take this issue seriously. And I understand that when an applicant walks in the door and is offering $1 billion for economic development and housing, better health care, some of the other values in the regional plan fall in the shadow of that. I'm a P&Z commissioner myself in the county, and my job is, I think, to balance positive values. I think that I'm just making a case for climate change to be a primary value here. So I urge you to continue this case, get the applicant, Northern Arizona Healthcare, to work with city sustainability folks, come up with real numbers, real commitments. There's a comment about mass timber in the specific plan that's building huge buildings out of wood. And then tonight there's an engineer talking about steel. Those are going in completely opposite directions. And so I would suggest continuance to resolve this and get to firm numbers and firm commitments. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Guys hear me back here? Yeah. Thank you. After that,
The applicant, Northern Arizona Healthcare, to work with city sustainability folks, come up with real numbers, real.
Oh, that was a weird. Okay, so Brandon Clark is next.
Hello, my name is Beth Cachette, and I am the NAH Systems Director for Critical Care Services. I have been with NAH for 21 years, and like Jeannie, I was also born at Flagstaff Medical Center. I also grew up at the hospital as my grandmother was a labor and delivery nurse for 35 years. So I have seen the ins and outs of many, many remodels across the campus throughout my entire lifetime. And simply, we've just outgrown our current footprint. There's lots, I could stand here for hours and talk to you about all of the struggles we have, but I'm gonna just outline a few that we have in our ICUs in particular. One of them, we have 3 ICUs currently at our Flagstaff campus, And in one of our units, it's literally a thoroughfare through the rest of the hospital. So we're trying to take care of critical patients while other patients are being transported through this unit. That does not allow dignity to our patients, the privacy that they deserve. Second, most of our ICU rooms are very small. You saw in the presentation one of the pictures of our ICU rooms, and it makes it nearly impossible for us to fit all of the necessary equipment to save the lives of our patients in our community. Additionally, in one of our ICUs in particular, we do not have great sunlight. In fact, some of our rooms look directly at another building. Our patients need sunlight to heal. Our patients need views of nature to heal. Thirdly, let's see, we have shared bathrooms in our ICU rooms. So that leaves one patient to only be able to utilize a bedside commode. Our patients deserve access to private bathrooms. And the last concern is that we have several units with shared rooms. As you heard in many of the other letters, this causes lots of hardships to our staff, but most impactful to our patients who desire a private room while they're in the hospital. Flagstaff is my home. My husband was raised in Flagstaff and works for the city as a firefighter. He is also in approval of this project. We're raising our 2 boys in this wonderful community, and we plan to retire in this community. This project will only enhance the amazing city we live in and work in. Our patients, staff, and communities deserve better health and wellness, or better health and healthcare, and the Health and Wellness Village will provide this. Thank you.
Thank you. Mark Bassett. Oh, wait, did I skip Brandon? And next is Mark Bassett.
Hello, thank you guys for having me. Brandon Clark, I'm an orthopedic traumatologist and the orthopedic trauma director at NEH with a 6123 Johnson Ranch Road. Here to speak on behalf of NEH and support the new Health and Wellness Village from a patient care perspective and the delivery of high quality health care. And from a trauma and critical services perspective, we're really just busting the seams as far as bed availability and patient access. At this point, we defer, I think the number was 5,600 patients away from FNC in a regional referral area, mainly down to the valley. And those are patients that we'd like to keep in our community and continue to service and provide healthcare needs, not only to them, but their family as well. The new facility, allows for expansion of the emergency department, providing significant more beds. Current state of the emergency department is that, wait times can be 6 to 8, even up to 12 hours, where you'll have people that are in trauma or community level trauma accidents that aren't able to get to a bed. Somebody that's got a shoulder dislocation sits for 6 to 8 hours because they can't get to a room and get that reduced. A lot of that's because they're holding patients and they're not able to get those upstairs to a bed because back to not having bed availability. Expand the size of our ORs. We have more ORs to work with currently. Block time is 6, 8 weeks out on elective cases. Sometimes getting trauma cases scheduled. We're having to defer those patients away because we're not able to take them because we just don't have access to the OR. Obviously, we want to change those, and build a better facility, a better community, and provide those needs. I think speaking with people as far as having more certain ICU beds and medical ICU beds, private rooms, all of that stuff provides to a better patient encounter and a better patient outcome. And so I just want to help you just encourage the support of the new facility and better healthcare for our community.
Thank you. Next week, after March, we have Pascal Bernardi.
Hi, my name is David Leader. I'm an interventional cardiologist. I live at 2132 North Fremont. I'm reading on behalf of Dr. Mark Cassidy, who couldn't be here. he states that he is thankful for the opportunity to speak, and he is a cardiothoracic surgeon. He's been practicing in the community for the last 12 years. Imagine yourself or a loved one undergoing a major surgery or suffer a major medical event that requires hospitalization. Being in the hospital is inherently uncomfortable and riddled with interruptions in rest. Much of this is unavoidable and necessary as part of a patient's treatment. Now toss in another patient as a roommate who has his/her interruptions as part of their treatment plan, and they are a mere 4 feet away from you or your loved one. Rest and a low level of stress are important aspects for recovery from surgery and illness. The current hospital does not afford this due to many patients having to share rooms. Flagstaff Medical Center saw its first patient in 1936. Since this time, the hospital has been growing and expanding services in an effort to better care for the northern Arizona population. This includes the 78,000 residents of Flagstaff, more than 160,000 members of the Navajo Nation, and more than 12,000 members of the Hopi Native American Reservation. The current facility does not have the capacity to serve the size of this combined patient population. The growth and expansion of the hospital needs to continue in order to serve Northern Arizona population, but also the current facility has no further room to grow. I believe that the proposed Northern Arizona Health and Wellness Village is necessary for multiple reasons. The first being a better place for convalescence for patients where they are afforded privacy that will only enhance their recovery. Another important consideration is that the medical field is constantly changing. We have great providers currently, but many of these individuals will ultimately retire or move on to other positions for various reasons. Having an up-to-date facility is crucial to attracting new physician and nursing talent to the Northern Arizona healthcare system and allows for expansion of services to care for the people of Northern Arizona. Those are Dr. Cassett's words. I'd like to say personally, I've been part of Flagstaff and NIH in a medical community for 5 years, which I understand makes me a newbie around here, but we love it here. This is a wonderful community, and I'm very proud to be part of the healthcare community. And Flagstaff is very lucky to have the quality of talent that is here and the dedication of the physicians and nurses that serve this community that I've not seen in other major urban and large academic centers. And I think this is a place where I'm very proud to work. It's a place that I want to retire. We're raising our family here. I wholeheartedly support the need for new facilities to treat the patient population here, which has grown even in the 5 years that we've been here. Okay. And I think I would echo the comments of others that that's needed to retract in the team talent.
Thank you.
Straw and then Haley, I think, Erwin.
Thank you. I'm Dr. Pasquale Bernardi. I'm the president of NIH's medical group. I'm a pediatrician by training. I've been with the organization for about 10 months now, and I live at 720 East Ponderosa Parkway in Flagstaff. One of my primary responsibilities in my role is recruiting. Bringing in physicians and other providers so that NIH can provide comprehensive care both in Flagstaff and in the Verde Valley. I'm going to focus on recruiting today. Recruiting, there's a physician shortage in the country, worse since the pandemic. And recruiting is very challenging, it's very competitive. We got a lot going for us. We've got an outstanding organization, we've got excellent providers, outstanding staff. You're going to talk tonight. I don't have to tell people in this room that Flagstaff sells itself, the Verde Valley sells itself. So there's some challenges too. Even doctors complain about the housing prices. Facilities don't help us. And they're going to become more and more of a liability going forward. We heard people like Dr. Lindquist, who's a huge asset to this community, one of our oncologists, speak about the challenges in oncology. It's really hard to bring candidates through facilities like that as part of the process. So again, not insurmountable, but definitely a challenge. It will be a huge advantage to us to be able to walk them through not just new facilities, but state-of-the-art facilities, next generation treatment options, efficient design, where we can provide better care. And so this, to me, the medical group, this project is not just about provide better care to the community, but also about helping us to bring in people who can help to provide that better care. Thank you.
Thank you. Hallie, or Haley, and then Rodney Engel.
My name is Haley Irwin. I'm reading a letter on behalf of Dr. Christopher Diefenbach, 1200 Lincoln Street. From a physician standpoint, our excitement for this project revolves around optimized patient care. The concept of a wellness village is appealing as it would allow for the continuum of care in a unified location. The village brings particular focus on preventative medicine and care with ease of patient access and an integrated approach to care that provides a supportive healing environment. For surgeons and proceduralists, updated top-of-the-line facilities and efficiencies will support the highest level of patient care for our community moving into the future.
Thank you. After Rodney is Scotty Rodriguez.
Hello, I'm Rodney. Excuse me. I'm Rodney Engel for the 2073 North Collestown Circle. I am a gastroenterologist in town and have privileges at Flagstaff Medical Center. I believe I'm one of the only physicians here that is not employed by Flagstaff Medical Center. I'm very much against the new health and wellness center. The hospital there definitely needs an update. The hospital definitely needs new facilities. But the hospital is not working with local providers. They haven't respected the medical community that we have around Hospital Hill, as it's colloquially called. They've not reached out. They expect us to move to that area without respecting what we have now. They've not made any plans, or certainly haven't communicated any plans for what they expect for that area, which is near my home. They have not communicated to me how my current surgery center and my office will have patients go to a hospital now on the other side of town, whereas I currently have my office on their property. So these things are very concerning for me, and there's been very little communication. Somewhat upset they have notes from a medical director in Phoenix or Tuba City, but haven't reached out to me. And that gives an idea of what we're dealing with. When Mr. Tinkle refers to my partner, Andrew Oberheiser, and talking to him, he also empowered me to say he's not in favor of this community. So again, I have major concerns with how Northern Arizona is approaching current healthcare and current providers in town to expand an entire wellness village, but not respect what they already have here. I think that's a major concern for our community, for our providers, for the people that are here that work in Flagstaff but don't feel empowered to speak to their bosses about something that they may not be in favor of. So these are my major concerns. Thank you for your time.
After Scotty is Bradford Cross.
Hi, good evening. My name is Scotty Rodriguez. I work for NIH as a facility licensing manager. I actually reside in Shoal, Arizona, at 898 Mountain Trail. When we think about rural healthcare, we think about those smaller communities with fewer resources than those that are generally located a fair distance from healthcare facilities or specialties. Many times, this can require patients, family members to have to take a day or a whole day off work for something as simple as even just a follow-up appointment. These inconveniences often result in patients putting off their health care. Unfortunately, the challenges of rural healthcare is simply to keep the doors open, let alone to expand the services. They're mounting. CMS tells us that since 2010, more than 137 rural hospitals have closed. Many other hospitals within rural communities are at risk of closing, with more than 47% of the country's rural hospitals reporting negative operating margins, and many of them trying to stay afloat just by simply closing their specialty units, such as OBGYN, oncology, and so forth. However, in spite of these trends, rural communities do not have to be destined for this future. Rural communities can strive to provide the care and specialty services required by residents of the community. To provide this depth of service, the community must be able to attract and support physicians, nurses, healthcare professionals required to deliver that care. This means having facilities that meet current code levels and can accommodate the technology and equipment that the professionals are being trained on during their schooling. For the past 5 years, I worked at the healthcare organization there in Cholo. I consistently sent people off that mountain to deliver specialized care in other communities, even here. I've witnessed the struggle to obtain and keep providers in the Cholo community due to the lack of facilities and technology needed for those specialties. Since joining NEH over a year ago, my family and I have also experienced firsthand the challenge of the Flagstaff housing crisis. And I've heard countless others that NEH have tried to recruit for open positions only to have the offer declined, being not able to afford to relocate here. This proposed development will not only help provide affordable housing options, but also unlock broader reaching housing opportunities through the development and redevelopment of the existing NEH properties, as well as providing access and infrastructure to dormant lands. No project will ever perfectly address every concern in every community, as I've seen in multiple. While the new hospital and ambulatory care center may not be carbon neutral at their opening, the benefits they will provide to this community cannot be fully quantified. So I'm fully in support of NAH having a health and wellness village. Thank you.
After Bradford will be Sarah Reeves.
My name is Bradford Croft. I'm a family physician in Flagstaff. I've been everybody for 42 years. I have had the opportunity to see a lot of the evolution that we talked about in their care. And I would make an observation after being here for 4 decades that what used to be the practice of medicine is well turning into the business of medicine. That's really changing the face of what we're doing and how we're seeing it done. HMOs, PPOs, POS, ACOs, a lot of alphabet soup that you've probably heard of over the years. It's all the profit of medicine. It's all a matter of money. If we take a look at where we are in this community, my concerns are that with NIH at the helm, we've seen a number of things thinking about the healthcare communities as they're absorbing simply specialties. For example, cardiology. Is that when you absorb cardiology, Dr. Winkler was doing an excellent job. There's some competition there. They took out Dr. Winkler, they bought it themselves. Since the management of that has really gone downhill, that initially you wouldn't get somebody to answer the phone or have somebody answer the phone if you were lucky, or leave a message that was never returned. Because it was such bad service that then competition, peak cardiology came from Phoenix, to the cardiology office of Flagstaff. Worst with that is the sleep medicine. Flagstaff at 7,000 feet probably has the most per capita sleep apnea patients in the United States. Sleep apnea, if you don't treat it, will likely limit your life expectancy for 8 to 10 years. They closed the sleep clinic. We don't have that capacity anymore for caring for the patients. This is the place you're going to see it. As far as the recent things with the closing of the pulmonology clinic, I understand there's a clinic or box that may be opening up, but the idea of no longer having that patient care, 7,000 people have desperate lung issues, as well as the intensivists that were serving the same group that were serving the intensive care for critical care. So the questions that I'm looking at as far as moving forward with this, and because the box is beautiful, I mean, I understand what you're looking to do. It's a beautiful thing. The question of it is the right thing at the right time, with the right management. Because as the facilities, my understanding as far as the need for a new facility is because they were turning people away, or they were in admissions. But what my understanding for that for people on the inside is because they don't have staff. They were closing units, they were closing floors, and with not having that service, the challenge with that was no service, so they weren't making revenue. This is maybe the reason that we've been in the red for a while. The challenge that I see with that is to build this new box is there was a movie that they build it, they will come. You know, it's just going to be the field of dreams, because if we don't have an adequate amount of staffing and professional care at this point in time, is building the facility going to allow us that those are going to automatically come to us because it's a beautiful place. You know, I would challenge the administration to kind of do a better job getting people to clean up and build up the facilities that we have now and utilize them. You know, turn those denials around and get people taken care of. So thank you for listening to me. Needed to throw something different as far as the discussion. Okay. Oh, 7410
Thank you. And after Sarah is Stefan. Summer.
Sarah Reeves, Commissioner, East Flagstaff Family Medicine. Oh, better? Yeah. Closer. I'm opposed to the new hospital, and more than being opposed, I just have the question: is this the appropriate use for that space? Does this fit with the neighborhood? Does it fit with the ideals and the management, the long-range planning that the city has, the Kane County has stated? That's it. It's a problem solution to that problem.
Stefan Summer, and then Rick Lopez.
Hi, now. Everybody doing okay? Staying awake? Thank you, Planning and Zoning Commission, for going through this process. And thank everybody for their comments tonight. My name is Dr. Stefan Sommer. I've been in Flagstaff for just over 20 years, and I live at 3855 South Jewel Drive. So I'm not a medical doctor. I'm a PhD retired professor from NAU. So I've got a slightly different perspective on this because I do read the scientific literature on climate change. And so many of you have made the case that the doctors and nurses here in the community care for people's health, and there's no question. We know this. We know that you all care about the community in that sense, but also the people who put the language into our regional plan that requires that we become carbon neutral by 2030, and that any new developments take that into consideration and look at what their carbon impact will be and for how it will affect the city meeting that goal, and for y'all to meet that goal, because it's everybody's regional plan. Right? And so for the city folks and y'all to be able to evaluate this plan, you need to know a number. You need to know what is the actual carbon footprint. So yeah, we've heard about efficiencies and some things that are being done perhaps in a better way than they could otherwise be done. But we don't know the bottom line. We don't know what the actual carbon footprint of this plan is, and we need to know that before y'all can make a decision. You cannot make this decision in a vacuum. So for those of you who don't read the scientific literature on climate change, I'd be happy to make a presentation and give you all the update on what it is, but it's not good. And you don't need to just rely on the scientific literature to reach that conclusion. You know that our community here has been suffering from increased risk of wildfire, actual houses burning down, flooding all over town because we're getting 400 and 500 year storms twice in a summer. It's insane. And what's coming is much more insane. So we need to put that into our planning for the future. So, perhaps I think people have made the case that there does need to be an infrastructure improvement at the hospital, so people can care for the community in the best possible way. But a key part of that is what is the carbon footprint of this plan. Until you guys know that, you don't have a basis for making a good decision. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Rick Lopez, followed by Stephen Howard.
I'm Rick Lopez. I live at 5 East Cedar Avenue, just 2 blocks north of the existing hospital. Madam Chair, committee members and staff, thank you for listening to so many people who have a variety of opinions on this issue. I'm here to give you the perspective of someone who's third-generation native of this Flagstaff. And during my lifetime, I have seen our community change from a small, sleepy town of northern Arizona of fewer than 10,000 people to a robust and dynamic community of almost 80,000 people, surrounded by another 20 to 30,000 people. Some of the changes I have seen have been for the better, and some not so much. There's one thing that has plagued our community for the better part of my lifetime, that being the lack of vision of what we could be.
As a result, most of our development has been reactive rather than proactive. Part of that has been driven by those who wish we could keep things the way they are, or from those who moved here most recently and want to close the gate now that they are here. In many ways, I wish we could go back to 1960 to that sleepy town that I grew up in. But that train left the station a long time ago. The hospital of today has served us very well for many years, and it would be easy for us to simply say, why can't this hospital continue to serve us well into the future? Healthcare is a competitive industry, and I know the Phoenix metro area is adding as many as 4 new hospitals in the next few years. I remind you that there is a cost to doing nothing. We, the community of Flagstaff, will bear the cost of maintaining the status quo for this hospital. The cost in not being able to attract the best doctors, the best nurses, the best technicians, or have the best technology. Without question, NIH has numerous issues besides the location of their hospital. Some of those issues have been imposed on them by our community, such as the lack of housing that is affordable to even some of the best paid nurses or technicians. It is my hope that NIH will, well, as other large employers, will step up and help our community address that housing issue. The Flagstaff that could be should include first-class health care. Don't let the lack of vision of previous generations plague the generations yet to come. No matter what NIH would propose, there will be those who oppose it. Those who don't think it goes far enough for sustainability, those who think it doesn't do enough for public transportation, and those who think it does too much to facilitate future growth. Some of us, however, think the cost of doing nothing far outweighs the cost of doing something. I'd also like to add one comment regarding the height of the building. When I first started attending NAU in the late 60s, NAU built a 9-story dorm, which required the city of Flagstaff to buy a ladder truck. And I guarantee you, Northern Arizona University didn't contribute 10 cents to that ladder.
Hello, my name is Susan Howden. I'm the Assistant Director for Surgical Services, and I'm speaking on behalf of Dr. Adam Weiss. Hi, my name is Dr. Adam Weiss, and I'm speaking to you in support of the Fort Tuthill Hospital project. I've been living in Flagstaff and practicing at Flagstaff Medical Center for 7 years. I'm a cardiac anesthesiologist and System Medical Director for Anesthesiology Services. I've worked in a private group and as an employed physician with the hospital. But most importantly, Flagstaff is my home. Providing high quality healthcare for the community is my top priority. I live in Fort Valley. I recognize that moving the hospital will worsen my commute, make call more difficult, and expose new challenges for the city. But like most things in medicine, you must consider risks and benefits. In this case, the risks are far outweighed by the benefit of a new state-of-the-art hospital for our community. Practicing in an outdated, undersized facility creates major challenges for patient care. Too often we delay, cancel, or transfer patients because of our operating rooms are too few and too small for the growth of our community and has experienced. Modern medical equipment has also changed. Newer treatment modalities require more space and resources. Until our facility can accommodate this new technology, we can't offer the highest level of care to our patients. Over the last 50 years, the current FMC campus has been repurposed, remodeled, and reconfigured as much as possible. The only way we can meet Flagstaff's growing healthcare need is a larger, modern facility at Fort Tuthill. Although there's a vocal minority opposing this move, my colleagues' overwhelming support the new hospital. Yes, there will be challenges to overcome, but most of the physicians I talk to agree that a new campus is necessary for delivering high-quality care. The fact is also apparent to the visiting physicians we're recruiting. Only days ago, I was asked by an interviewing pediatric anesthesiologist how we could grow our pediatric service line if he moves to Flagstaff. Unfortunately, the limited space and already stretched capacity of our current hospital has no room for growth. If we want to recruit him and other high-quality physicians, we need a campus that can accommodate new service lines and the growing needs of Northern Arizona. For these reasons, my colleagues and I strongly encourage you to support the new campus at Fort Tuthill. Thank you for your time.
Thank you. And we have Gil Jackson. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Brandon Abbott, resident of Flagstaff, Cattle Drive Trail. There we go. So as a hospitalist and a medical director at the Children's Health Center, and as well as the president of the Arizona Osteopathic Medical Association, who has also supported the development of the new hospital, the new proposed hospital. I also, want to talk in support of the hospital. I think that a lot of the stuff that I was planning on saying has already been said 50 times already, but largely it comes down to on my end, in my role as a hospitalist, having to tell, my hope is that a new facility will help to allow me to have the conversation with my neighbors less frequently that we can't take care of them in their local hospital. Having to have that conversation on a regular basis is really heartbreaking. When I go to see somebody in the ER and say, actually, we can't take care of you here, we're gonna have to transfer you down to Phoenix. When we have at the Children's Health Center, try to have to defer a patient who, like Keith had said, has to travel several hours even just to get the Flagstaff, now has to go all the way, extra down to Phoenix, et cetera. That's kind of my larger part of my talk. That's it.
And Gail Jackson. Are you here?
I think you guys can make it. So excited. I'm Gail Jackson, I'm the president and CEO of Econa. We are the Regional Economic Development Agency. We are here tonight to strongly support NAH's plan that they have presented to you. 8% of the net new job growth and capital investment comes from existing businesses like Northern Arizona Healthcare, who've already established a presence here. According to Arizona Prospector, there are over 10,000 healthcare and social service jobs currently in Northern Arizona, and 534 healthcare businesses. Of those 534 businesses, there's only one level 1 trauma center. These numbers demonstrate that healthcare is the leading economic driver for Northern Arizona. Northern Arizona Healthcare provides over 3,000 jobs for our region, with more than 60% of patients coming from outside the Flagstaff area. This regional asset is critical to the future of our vitality of this region. Northern Arizona Healthcare provides employment for the talent pipeline for nurses that are graduating from our educational institutions that are here, Coconino Community College, and the #1 ranked best nursing school in Arizona, Northern Arizona University. A modernized healthcare system will help the hospital to attract physicians, nurses, and staff. It will allow hospital employees the room they need to carry out their jobs efficiently. And looking to the future, companies that want to expand, they look for quality schools. They look for a quality healthcare system, not one that's antiquated. Both of these components provide what's needed to attract and retain their employees. The addition of the Wellness Village provides opportunity for future and current employers to consider expansion or relocation. Shovel-ready space with infrastructure is limited within the city of Flagstaff. Planning and zoning commissioners, I strongly encourage you to approve this specific planning request. This project will provide opportunity for Northern Arizona to stay economically vibrant and gives us access to modernized healthcare. And this is desperately needed for our visitors and our current future residents and visitors. Thank you.
Thank you. And do we have any comments? Pardon?
Alexander Shinton is online.
Okay. Alexander Shinton, you're on. Alexander, are you ready to speak? Well, you're quiet. Oh, there you go.
There he is. Now we hear you.
Sorry, I just had to step away. Let me put my hand down. Thank you, everyone. I'm Alexander Shankin. I'm a research professor at NAU here. I live at 54 West Nice Trail in Ponderosa Trails. I've been following this NAH development as much as a layperson to these processes can. And I'd like to chime in my concern about this project. NAH has shown that they've gone through a whole bunch of communities, and they kind of proudly show a list of all the communities that they've spoken with, but I've heard absolutely nothing about what they've learned from that, what lessons they've taken from it, and what lessons there from those interviews, which largely have been panned as being unhelpful from the point of view of the residents. I've seen none of that make it into any of the plans. And I will also note that the document that was produced in March by the Planning and Zoning Commission makes no mention of community consultation being advised to the city council as a step in the process to figure out if and how NAH, the new village, will happen. It's concerning to me. It's concerning to a lot of my fellow community members here. And previously, in some of the city council meetings, I do recall, I forget exactly who it was, a woman who was working on the NAH project had said that, taking account of the community concerns was not an issue to be considered at that time, but rather in the entitlement process. So again, I'm a layperson to these processes, but I believe that this is the entitlement process at this moment. Please correct me if I'm wrong. If that's the case, I still have heard nothing, absolutely nothing, about taking community concerns into account in this development. So these include traffic, noise, potentially increased vagrancy, helicopters zooming overhead, a huge, tall, potentially ugly building greeting visitors and residents to Flagstaff as they come up I-17 or I-40. And so none of this has been addressed. It's hugely concerning. And honestly, I think that these are the kinds of things that, there's been a lot of talk about how this is so important for the community. Sorry?
I need to interrupt you because that's your time.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Who do we have next? There is nobody else. So our public comment. And
we all need the recommendation would be to make a motion to close the public hearing but continue this item until April 26th. Or that's we're going for next week. We'll do next. We're going to do next week. So
okay. So can we have a motion to close the public meeting and continue the rest of this meeting? Let's do that in 2 steps.
So,
And we get a second on that?
question though. Like there's some things that I would want to have as an ask for our next meeting. Can I make those known now during this tabling of the meeting?
Okay.
And then I guess I do during discussion.
Let's just do that.
Okay, that's right. I was hoping that between now and whenever we meet again, whatever the next meeting is set up for, that, thank you. I was just hoping that between now and the next meeting, that, I have a few asks, that we would be able to have those slides from the NAH, particularly the energy efficiency slides, sent to us so that we could look at them, because it was hard to see the fine print up there. There was a lot of work done between the last public hearing and this one with regard to the specific plan. So, for us to even be able to vote on the specific plan, I would want to see the revised all the revised work that's been put into it.
So nothing has been revised in a specific plan.
Just the presentation.
So the things like where the TIA came in and there was the agreement to add in all those mitigations and the 25% energy start.
So those conditions are already there so you have the information. We'll update the document, when it makes it through, but those conditions of approval are there.
So those are just going to be conditions, it's not gonna be a rewritten or revised specific plan.
It'll be once it makes it all the way through the hearing process, if it does.
Okay, so those just get added to the conditions list. Okay, that's helpful. So obviously what I would be looking for was, obviously that the TIA, the energy efficiency commitment, that it would be included for all the developments within the specific plan. I hope to see that there was some mention of the county cooperative agreements that were mentioned. And obviously I'm sure, obviously the 50% contribution to the capital improvements, and hopefully maybe the city financial details will be part of that, especially if the RAISE grant doesn't come through. I think that would.
So the 50% is for the cost of the fire station. NIH is responsible for the transportation improvements.
Okay, so where was that 50% capital?
That is specifically for the relocation of fire station number 6.
And is that going to the development agreement or into the
Yes,
specific
that is in the
plan?
development.
Okay. So I'm just, clarifying some of those other public use of the open space and the details or examples of the recreational amenities. So whether it's the specific plan or whether it's further details on the development agreement, I think all those, fine details would help us make an approval or not to recommend. But I'd also ask NEH to consider in the meantime any possibility for solar panels on the parking garage. Any details that outline the commitment to the carbon footprint number. I know there was mention here tonight and in numerous of our letters that came to us. We got over probably close to 50 written comments. And there was an overwhelming thread of concern for carbon neutrality. So there was a mention of the scope 1 and 2 goals. I'm assuming that's within the greenhouse gas protocol. So if there's any details that can just, help the community and help us understand what the true goals in energy efficiency and the carbon footprint actually are to meet our carbon neutrality plans, that would be helpful. And then lastly, I think there's a need for reserving some of the housing for employees for retention and attraction purposes. But anyway, those are the things that I'm seeing that I would have questions on that would help me make a vote next time.
And I think we're just closing the public meeting, public comment meeting, so that we don't have to open it up again, right, next
We
week.
actually just need a motion to continue the meeting. We don't actually need a motion to close the meeting.
Okay.
So Marie, just state the hearings, the public hearings closed.
The public hearing is
There's the
closed.
chair state that and then
Okay.
need a motion to continue until April. Okay.
Yeah, so we can ask questions and make everything continue on.
Okay, those are just things that I would want to see next time. I just want to put it out there. So
Yeah, so,
preparation.
and I would agree, anything that's new that we haven't gotten,
Yeah, I would like to ask city staff to put together some sort of, we have all these pieces in thousands of different places from a financial perspective. I really need the city staff.
Can everybody in the audience please be quiet as you're leaving, because we need to make sure that we get this on record.
So I would like a true analysis of what the total cost will be and what the split it is between the citizens of Flagstaff and NAH. So
Estimates are fine, right?
yes, estimates are fine, but I think just, almost like a one-page handout, right? That just says, hey, this is where we stand right now.
Okay.
And then here's our solutions for the portion that Flagstaff, the citizens of Flagstaff are gonna have to pay for. What is that, right? Because if that's property taxes and we already have a problem with affordable housing, you know what I'm saying? So I think I just need to see facts. So that's what. So also, I would like to see more from NAH about the building itself. What I have and everything that I got is just a drawing of the building, but I have nothing about the interior of the building, how it's run and why.
So I just wanted to remind you that this is a concept.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Okay. Is there something you want to get, say, please, that was okay, so motion to continue.
Yeah, because we already motioned that, so just close the.
All those in favor?
Aye.
And, we're gonna meet next week, on Wednesday, same time, same place, but.
No, not same place at City Hall.
At City Hall, that means.
Did you talk into the mic? Sorry.
And it's gonna be a special meeting.
So it's next Wednesday, the 19th.
April 19th, 4 PM, City Hall, special meeting. Okay, we need a motion for that. I'll make a motion for April 19th.
Everybody, I got you to be quiet.
Motion.
Please continue and just restate the motion that
Oh,
you
yeah.
just said a minute ago. And that is to continue the meeting until April 19th. And whoever seconded it.
It wasn't me.
It was me, I made the motion. I motion to continue the meeting on April 19th, at City Hall, 4 p.m. Anything else? No, okay.
Ian, did you second that?
Thank you.
Thank you.
All in favor?
All in favor? Okay.